I turned down my ex's attempt to partner in my new restaurant after she sabotaged our first business and shattered my trust. I, 32M, and my ex-fiancée, Veronica, 31F, had a food truck together. We both dreamed of having our own restaurant when we first met 3 years ago while attending culinary school. While I had been working in kitchens since I was 16 to support myself, Veronica, who hailed from an affluent family, had never worked in the culinary sector prior to attending school. Despite our disparate upbringings, we clicked right away. When we first started the business, we were engaged for 2 years and dated for 6. Since I graduated, I had been saving money by working 60-hour weeks at different restaurants to accumulate cash and experience. By my 29th birthday, I had saved about $100,000. Veronica persuaded me to start with a food truck instead of continuing to save money until I could create a real restaurant. Before spending money on a complete restaurant, she suggested, it would be the ideal opportunity to test our concept and develop our brand. My entire concept and idea for the food truck came from me. By fusing contemporary cooking methods with my grandmother's traditional recipes, I want to serve fusion cuisine. Even though Veronica didn't contribute any money, I decided to make her a 50-50 its partner because she looked pleased about it and we were engaged and hoping to get married within the year. I oversaw operations and cooking, while she handled all financial matters because she had accounting knowledge from a prior position. The first year was fantastic. We discovered the ideal location next to a few office buildings, and our food was well liked by frequent patrons. We were found by local food bloggers, who gave us excellent evaluations. We even made the list of the top 10 food trucks in our city. I felt like I had finally realized my dream after our accomplishment, and it was even more satisfying to do it alongside Veronica. However, after 14 months, things began to become strange. I started to see inconsistencies in our inventories. Based on our sales, supplies would run out sooner than they ought to. Veronica indicated that we might be squandering more food than we thought, or that some staff might be stealing when I brought this up to her. Since she was in charge of the books, I trusted her judgment. After that, I saw that funds appeared to be vanishing from our account. Despite making a healthy profit, we never appeared to have enough money for necessities. Veronica would become defensive and accuse me of not trusting her if I attempted to look at the books. "Do you think I'm stealing from us? Or don't you trust your future wife?" are some of the things she would say. I felt bad for even asking, because of her. When one of our suppliers called to inform us that we were 3 months late on our payments, it was the tipping point. I knew we had enough revenue to support our costs, so this was illogical. I checked our business account online while Veronica was asleep. I felt ill to my stomach after discovering what I did. Veronica had been regularly moving money, often thousands of dollars at a time, from our corporate account to her personal account. The following morning, when I confronted her, she sobbed and acknowledged that she had been stealing money for months. She stated that she needed money to support Andrea, 25F, her younger sister, who was allegedly having a lot of credit card debt and didn't want their parents to find out. I tried to be understanding even though I was upset. Andrea, who occasionally assisted us with the food truck, was also like a sister to me. It was unbelievable to me that she was in such difficulties and hadn't approached us immediately. In order to discuss the matter and determine how we could assist Andrea in managing her debt, I gave her a call. However, Andrea was utterly perplexed. She said that she had no debt and that Veronica had not given her any money. Actually, she was doing very well financially and had recently received a promotion at work. Andrea was astonished when I informed her of Veronica's justification for the missing funds. Over the course of 8 months, it was discovered that Veronica had stolen about $50,000 from our company. The complex lies she had said and the way she had exploited her own sister as a cover story were more significant than the money. Her tale altered when I approached her once more. She said she wanted to surprise me and that she had been saving the money for our wedding and a down payment on a home. She had been taking out cash at ATMs, according to bank records, but the money was nowhere to be located. I promptly called off our engagement. Veronica sobbed uncontrollably, alternating between pleading for my pardon and claiming that I was exaggerating. Her parents became involved, which made matters worse. They maintained that since we were engaged and would shortly get married, it wasn't actually theft. Her father even implied that my tight control over the company funds amounted to financial abuse. In order to settle our supplier bills, I had to sell the food truck. I lost nearly everything I had accumulated because of the stolen money and the depreciated worth of a used food truck. I almost went bankrupt and was horrified. According to Veronica's parents, it was only a little financial dispute that I had exaggerated. Even some of our mutual acquaintances said I should try to make amends with her since I was being too harsh. After working at several jobs for 2 years and saving every penny, I eventually launched my own tiny restaurant 6 months ago. It's nothing special, but I own it and have total authority over it. I maintain thorough records of everything and engaged qualified accountants. The restaurant is thriving. We're already making money and receiving positive feedback. Veronica arrived during dinner service last week. She claimed to want to put things right after learning about my achievement from friends we shared in common. She said she had changed and had some money to invest, so she proposed to be partners once more. She mentioned how effectively we collaborated before to the problems and suggested that we work together to further the restaurant's success. She has persisted even after I urged her to leave after laughing incredulously. Her parents began phoning me, accusing me of being spiteful and urging me to give Veronica another chance because she was essentially family. They mentioned how she had assisted me in launching my first company and claimed that I owed her for that. I blocked their phone numbers. On social media, Veronica's pals are now disparaging me and accusing me of being callous for failing to assist my ex-family in getting back on their feet. Since everyone deserves a second opportunity, several mutual friends claim that I'm being too harsh and that I should at least listen to her. Update. 3 weeks have passed since my last post. Thank you to everyone who left a comment and offered encouragement. I need to get this off my chest since, regrettably, things have become much worse. Veronica and her parents started visiting my restaurant during our busiest times after I blocked them. Initially, Veronica was the only one ordering water while seated alone at a corner table. She would remain for hours, looking at me every time I went by. Some clients observed the tension, and my employees began to feel uneasy. Her parents then joined in. They would only order the cheapest items on the menu and occupy a large table that could seat 6 people during our Friday and Saturday dinner rush. They would try to wave me down every time I passed, screaming things like, "This is no way to treat your future in-laws," or "We're family, you can't ignore us forever," loud enough for the customers around to hear. At first, I made an effort to manage things professionally. My host seated them in less conspicuous locations and told the employees to handle them just like any other patron. However, they went too far last week. During dinner service, Veronica's father got up and began yelling at other patrons about how I had taken their daughter's business ideas and left her when she needed assistance. There was a commotion when I had to ask them to leave. Only after I threatened to call the police did they go. The following day, I began to see odd internet evaluations. To submit unfavorable evaluations about my restaurant, someone had set up several accounts. They said we served bad food, had rats in the kitchen, and had major health code breaches. The fact that certain reviews brought up particular instances from our food truck days that only she would be aware of, such as the time we had to close early due to a generator failure, and that she twisted into a tale about food contamination was what gave Veronica away. My business began to suffer from the phony reviews. Our lunch attendance significantly shrank, and I experienced multiple cancellations of reservations. Veronica was served with a cease and desist letter by the lawyer I hired, who specialized in defamation matters. In response, she posted on many sites and made more fictitious accounts. At that moment, an unforeseen event occurred. Veronica's sister, Andrea, visited my restaurant after it had closed. She claimed she was unable to remain silent any longer and was clearly agitated. She disclosed that Veronica never provided assistance to anyone using the pilfered funds. She had been concealing her gambling addiction for years. Andrea claims that before we even met, Veronica had been going to underground casinos. Although she was able to conceal it effectively, her losses had been increasing. She immediately used the $50,000 she took from our food truck business to settle debts related to gambling. 2 years prior, when Andrea found Veronica unconscious in her apartment with threatening messages from loan sharks on her phone, she had learned of this. Andrea proved everything to me with pictures, text messages, and bank statements. Veronica has been controlling everyone in her vicinity. She had even convinced their parents that she needed the money for our wedding preparations, so she had stolen it. She had previously gambled away her savings, which is why she hadn't contributed any funds to our food truck. It was troubling why Andrea hadn't stepped out sooner. She had been blackmailed by Veronica. Although their conservative parents were unaware of it, Andrea was seeing a lady. If Andrea ever told their parents the truth about the gambling, Veronica had vowed to expose her. When Andrea realized that Veronica's behavior was ruining my new company, she eventually made the decision to notify me since she could no longer bear the guilt. I informed our common acquaintances, who had been disparaging me on social media, of this knowledge. Many expressed shock and apologies for making assumptions about me before hearing the whole tale. Many recalled giving Veronica loans that she never paid back, constantly citing various justifications such as unexpected costs. Veronica's parents, meanwhile, continue to live in denial. They accused Andrea of lying to conceal her own lifestyle choices when she attempted to provide proof of Veronica's gaming. They are now accusing me of being cruel for disseminating false information about Veronica's alleged addiction and of manipulating Andrea into turning against her sister. When some of Veronica's contacts from the casino began to visit my restaurant, the situation became even more difficult. They weren't subtle individuals, and other patrons felt uneasy around them. One of them cornered me in the parking lot after closing last week and said I ought to be more giving to my ex-fiancée. To keep an eye on the property during business hours, I had to hire a security guard. Because of all this commotion, my business is getting hurt. I've had to pay for security and legal fees, and our weekday dinner service has decreased by 30%. However, I'm not going to back down. We are getting ready to file a lawsuit against Veronica and anyone else attempting to harm my company, and my lawyer is compiling proof of harassment and defamation. I know that giving Veronica money will just make her conduct worse, yet some people have urged that I do so to make this stop. Instead of supporting her and making excuses for her behavior, she needs professional therapy for her gambling addiction. Part of the reason I'm giving this update is to alert others to the ways addiction may lead to manipulation and harm to those closest to the addict. I'm concentrating on safeguarding my company and my staff for the time being. I've started recording every event and added more security cameras. I've also warned other local business owners about the possibility of harassment. My true friends have come to light as a result of this circumstance, and I'm appreciative to those who have supported me during this chaos. Update 2. 2 months have passed since my last update, and what I have in store for you feels like something from a horrible movie. A man named Michael, 35M, entered my restaurant during prep time and asked to speak with me alone, just when I believed I had exposed all of Veronica's lies. He identified himself as the current legal husband of Veronica, not her ex-husband. I initially believed that this was just another effort at harassment, but Michael had data to support my claims. He gave me their 7-year-old marriage certificate, pictures from their wedding, and court documents detailing his efforts to find Veronica 5 years ago after she vanished with their money. Since Veronica had never formally divorced him, our engagement was a sham. Michael told his story over lunch. He married young after being in love with Veronica in high school. They opened a tiny bakery in a different state with their wedding funds and a loan from his parents. Does that sound familiar? Veronica maxed out their credit cards, cleared out their accounts, and disappeared after 2 years of what appeared to be a prosperous business. She only left a note expressing her sense of being stuck in the marriage. In addition to the divorce, Michael spent years trying to find her because she had ruined his family. In order to repay the company loans they co-signed, his parents had to sell their home. The time was ideal. 3 months before she met me at culinary school, Veronica vanished from Michael's life. When I brought up the topic of actually choosing a wedding date, she always had an excuse since she had changed her last name but had never formally divorced him. Michael's story made me feel physically ill. Veronica wasn't being sentimental or pragmatic when she recommended that we elope or expressed a desire for a small, private wedding ceremony. Legally, she was unable to wed me. She had previously stolen money from our food truck business, but this was her most recent theft. Surprisingly, Veronica revealed everything when I texted her to confront her about Michael. But she twisted the story, as Veronica always does. She said Michael had been abusive and domineering. Michael, however, showed me police records he had submitted, which demonstrated that she was the one who was abusing him and that she had to steal the money in order to get away. Veronica said that she had intended to divorce Michael in the end and that she had kept her marriage a secret from me out of protection. After hours of note comparing, Michael and I discovered that Veronica had been operating the same fraud in several places. She would connect with someone who wanted to launch a food-related business, get access to their money, and then drain their accounts. As far as we know, she had done this at least 4 times. Together with Michael's attorney, my attorney is currently constructing a fraud case against Veronica. At last, Michael is able to serve her with divorce documents. The fact that this seems to be a pattern of intentional illegal activity across several states is another reason why the authorities are interested. When further victims began contacting us, it was the biggest shock. Michael published my original Reddit post in forums for company owners after discovering it. 3 other individuals came forward with comparable accounts of Veronica. Even while she was still living with Michael, she was engaged to one. Every story had the same pattern. She would become part of their life, win their trust by falling in love and then take whatever she could. When Veronica's parents found out about her prior marriage, they eventually stopped supporting her. When her mother arrived at my restaurant in tears, she said she didn't know who her daughter was. However, they have just vanished without offering me an apology for their harassment and accusations. Andrea claims that in order to settle some of Veronica's gambling debts, they have deactivated their social media accounts, ceased frequenting the restaurant, and mortgaged their home. Since we called the police, the casino staff has also retreated. It turns out that some of them didn't want the spotlight and were operating an illegal gambling enterprise. Veronica owes them more than $200,000, we found out. She had been trying to recover her losses by spending the money she had stolen from me and other people, but she had only ended up losing more. At last, things are returning to normal at my restaurant. Regular consumers are coming back now that the phony reviews have been taken down. This strange experience has made me buddies with Michael. He even promised to assist me in growing my company after the legal matters are resolved. He stated that he hopes this entire fiasco would lead to something positive. I'm still amazed at how meticulously Veronica organized everything. She made up whole false personas and life tales in addition to lying about minor details. Since they discovered anomalies in her application materials, the culinary school where we met is currently looking into the matter. Her entire existence seems to have been based on falsehoods. Update 3. This will most likely be my final update, as it has been 6 months since my last post. Last month, Veronica was taken into custody in Las Vegas. She apparently ran away there after all the information was made public and attempted to con a casino owner with the same ruse. She was obviously unaware that casino owners spoke with one another, and one of them knew who she was from the warnings that had been going around. Under a different fictitious name, the cops discovered her residing at an inexpensive motel. She had 5 different IDs and credit cards in different names when she was arrested. Notebooks describing her prior scams, including the one she perpetrated on me, were also discovered. She had everything in writing, including when to start collecting money, how to build trust, and how long to wait before proposing a business opportunity. Everything was organized like a business plan. She faces many fraud charges from the district attorney in multiple states. In addition to Michael and me, they discovered at least 7 more victims. While she was still legally married to Michael, she was also engaged to 2 of them. She has taken about $800,000 in total throughout the years. She could face severe jail time. Andrea now frequents my restaurant on a regular basis. She moved in with her girlfriend in a nearby apartment after coming out to her parents and being shunned. Ironically, she now assists me with the books, carrying out the task her sister was meant to perform. In addition to being far more skilled at it, she is also honest. We occasionally discuss Veronica and attempt to determine whether there were any indicators that we overlooked, but our main goal is to move on. Last week, Veronica's parents finally spoke out. They actually sent me a handwritten letter, not a text or email. Although it wasn't quite an apology, I thought it may be. They wrote about how their love for their kid blinded them and how they failed to raise her properly. In order to pay off the obligations Veronica had accrued in their names, they acknowledged having to sell their home and relocate to a smaller space. Not for their benefit, but so they might have a relationship with their future grandkids, if I ever had any. They asked if I could find it in my heart to forgive them. I didn't answer. There are some issues that cannot be resolved verbally, and I have no desire to keep up any relationship with them. They only expressed regret once they became victims themselves, supported Veronica's actions for years, and attacked my character after I revealed her thievery. In fact, all of this has made Michael and I close friends. He recently launched a new bakery in the community, and we are discussing the possibility of working together on future initiatives. We both concur that we must not allow Veronica's actions to deter us from putting our faith in others and going for our goals. Now more than ever, my restaurant is doing well. In fact, more customers came in as a result of the attention surrounding Veronica's arrest. In an attempt to torment me, some even want to sit at the famous table, where she used to wait for hours. I now make fun of it with my employees, but we've also put strong security measures in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Although the legal proceedings are still going on, I'm not giving them any more attention. I have provided the prosecutors with the required statements and supporting paperwork. I'm done allowing Veronica to occupy space in my life, but her actions will be held against her in court. I occasionally reflect on how things might have gone differently if I had allowed myself to be manipulated by her and given her another chance. Like she did with the food truck, she most likely would have emptied my new restaurant as well. Rather, I followed my gut and refused to back down. I've discovered that getting even or disproving others isn't always the best form of retaliation. It's about turning a bad experience into something good. I've made real friends, my restaurant is doing well, and I'm at last at peace with all that has transpired. For anyone experiencing a similar situation, follow your instincts, document everything, and avoid being coerced into disregarding warning signs. Certain individuals reveal their true selves to you. Trust them the first time. 2 years after a life-changing surgery at 14, I prepared for death, but the story didn't end there. Original post, I, 14M, have a bone disease known as multiple hereditary exostosis (MHE). It causes benign bone tumors to grow everywhere on my body. Although they aren't cancerous, they're very painful when they are near a nerve. A lot of these tumors have grown in my knees, fingers and ribs. You can probably guess there are a lot of nerves and muscles there that can be pinched and pierced. It hurts quite a lot. I am constantly at level 5 pain, scale of 1, 10. I can only walk for up to 2 minutes, I can't write, with a pen, if I couldn't type this post wouldn't exist lol, and I'm basically in agony. We have decided I will go for surgery to saw off some of the most painful tumors in my knee. Hopefully this will restore my ability to walk. The doctors have also decided we should remove 2 of my ribs, which have cracked due to the tumors. They'll be replaced with metal, I think. There is a 20% chance of death with all these very complicated procedures, and of course a chance this surgery doesn't change anything, or even makes it worse. Rolling a less than 6-sided dice to determine if I live or die. But to be honest, I don't really care what happens in this surgery. If it works, great, I can walk again. If it fails and my condition stays the same, deteriorates, I've adapted to this disease enough. I can probably handle a few turns for the worst. And if I die, well, I suppose then there is no more pain. My friends say it is wrong for me to feel okay about dying. I'm not suicidal, I wouldn't kill myself if I had the chance. But I don't exactly care if I die at this point. It's in fate's hands at this point. Comment anything. In 7 hours, I'll be on the operating table that'll determine my destiny. Some of OOP's comments. Editor's note, most comments were encouraging OOP and wishing him the best, with OOP thanking them. I included a few others to give a general vibe of the other comments. Commenter, perhaps your friends are saying it's wrong because they think they're trying to be strong for you when you're suffering, trying to give you their will to keep going, but don't know how to express themselves in a gentler way. I assume they're young, like you, and it's unlikely they've had to come to terms with anything approaching what you've been through. They lack the maturity that's been forced on you, but they care about you. OOP, I think you're right about my friends. Thank you for putting it into perspective. I hope I'm using that phrase right, lol. Thank you, and I'll take care. You too, internet stranger. Commenter, I'm sorry you're experiencing this, especially so young. That's not at all fair. I wish you a speedy recovery and that you can have a normal life again. There's also nothing wrong with making peace with the myriad of possibilities that could happen. With only a 20% chance of death though, I'd say the odds are in your favor. Good luck with your surgery, OP. OP, thank you for all the kind words and wishes. I know it isn't fair, but life ain't fair for anyone. Yes, there are so many things that could go right or wrong in this, so I might as well be ready for anything. Even though it's only 20%, well, you should see my luck at Monopoly and realize I'm probably screwed lol. Commenter. Hi, I am an orthopedic surgeon in Western PA. I am sorry to hear about your situation, however your odds of dying are far less than 20%, less than 1% actually, unless there is something you're not telling us. 2 ribs and even a full knee replacement is very safe. Good luck to you, P. Well, if my chance of death is less, then great. But my docs are saying the odds are high due to blood loss and other factors. I can't really say what other factors are in play, as my mom and surgeons handle most of my medical stuff lol. I'm just here to rant before the surgery. Wish I could tell you more, but I legitimately am unsure about it. Commenter. So I'm a biomedical engineer, and we're often the ones who aid in the design for procedures like you're going through. A big thing no one mentions about these things is that the averages are based on everyone who has had this done. The elderly, the morbidly obese, the immunocompromised, the addicted. Everyone. If you're a 14-year-old, and believe me, being young has a lot to do with how you recover and how much damage you can take, like a monumental amount, then it's entirely possible that you've got significantly better odds than 20%. And your ability to bounce back from this might even surprise you. I can't tell you that it'll all be okay, but I can tell you where I'd put my money. Good luck. Oop. Ty for showing me the odds just might be better than expected. Still, best to prepare for everything. Commenter. A group of bunnies is sometimes called a fluffle. You said comment anything. OP. Sometimes. Are there occasions where they aren't called a fluffle? Commenter. Can you ask them to keep some of the bone they remove? That would be a wild souvenir to put on your shelf. Also goes without saying, I hope you don't die, but if you do and you want someone to haunt, I'm down. Oopie, a piece of rib on the wall. Sounds like a very good artifact. Also, I'll be sure to jump scare you at 3 AM if I become a ghost lol. Commenter. Hell yeah man, I'll keep a light on for you so you can find your way here. You can pass on info from the other side and I can spread your messages to the masses. We can eventually take our show on the road, but will no doubt split due to creative differences, those of course being I make all the money and you don't because, you know, ghosts can't use human currency. But if there is ghost currency, you will be golden. OP, we will start a human ghost pyramid scheme and it will be the most profitable business. We will surpass Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk with all the great profits. Commenter, my dad had a 20% chance in knee replacement surgery, the complications, and died days later. We had the discussion. I told him to go to the light if he saw it, and if he felt he wanted to stay, he could, and that I would be okay. Days later, he died of a blood clot. I'm sorry at your young age, you're galvanized by such a challenge. I also see your alacrity. Consciousness is everything. Eyes open, my friend. My heart breaks for you and hopes for you. OP, thank you. My uncle also tells me to go to the light if it's seen. Let's see what fate has in store. Commenter, anything you want people to do to honor you? OOP, to honor me, just find a moment to be happy. Hang out with a good friend, play a cool video game, or just sit at home watching Netflix. Be happy, and I'm happy. Edit 1. Same post. About 7 hours later. Edit, soon about to enter the operating room. Well, this is it, let's see our fate. Edit 2. Same post. 16 hours from OG post. Edit 2. I'm alive, let's go. Recovery pain's a bitch, but otherwise, I'm fine. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, wish you all the best. Greetings from Switzerland. OOP, a Thai and an I'm alive. I am from Singapore. Commenter, I'm so glad you made it. How was the feeling heading up to going under? Any regrets and other thoughts? If you don't feel like sharing, I totally understand. OOP. I was pretty calm when I went into the operating room. As said in the post, I had come to terms with all the possibilities. Also, I got laughing gas for a while before I fell asleep. Very nice feeling, lol. I didn't really have any regrets. I also didn't think much, lol. I do remember humming Sabatons to hell and back when I was going under the Lameo. Update post 1, March 9th, 2022. Same day as edit, deleted. Title, Still Alive You MFers Update. Post 2, March 30th, 2022. 3 weeks later? Update, 3 weeks ago I might have died. Now I'm alive and relearning how to walk. Hello lads, you may remember my previous post. If not, here's a quick recap. I, 14M, have a bone disease known as MAG, which causes non-cancerous bone tumors to grow across the body. Although they aren't cancerous, they still cause problems such as causing my legs to not be able to walk longer than 3 minutes, and causing pain in my legs. Due to this, my doctors suggested I do a surgery to remove the bone tumors in my ribs and knees. They'd have to remove 2 entire ribs as the tumors were inside the rib. I was prepared for any result of the surgery. Didn't really care whether I lived or died, I had prepared for death and was hoping to live. I'll write what happened on each day in the hospital and each week at home. Note that I don't write a diary, so all this is in hindsight, so some dates may be inaccurate as I forgot when some events happened. Also, I add unnecessary details sometimes, so I'll put a TLDR at the end. Day 1 in hospital. It was early morning when I entered the hospital. I texted some friends and hugged my sisters and mum. I then went to the operating room with my dad, and the doctors took over from there. Quick briefings happen, then the gas mask is on, and I inhale anesthesia. Whatever happened, it would be alright. And I wake up. Yep, I'm alive, and feeling pretty weird. The surgery was successful, very nice. The doctors wheel my bed to the ward, and my mum's overjoyed. Once I'm aware enough to use my phone, I text my family and friends. They are all glad to see me alive. I also update my post on Reddit and posted a I lived bitch mean selfie on my profile. I eat dinner and it's time for bed. Then I wake up in the middle of the night. Oh shoot, I can't breathe properly without immense pain. The one thought in my mind was, Gottverdammt, did I celebrate too early? I call the nurse, he gets me a O2 mask and breathing returns back to normal. With not much else to do, I return to slumber. Day 2, the doctors are concerned about what happened last night, so I did an x-ray on my chest. They decide it's alright, and I go back to the ward. The thing that happened on day 1 wouldn't happen again, fortunately. Day 2 was spent mostly lazing around, being in pain, playing dumb Roblox games and learning to sit up on the bed with the help of my physiotherapist. Not sure what else to say, day 2 was boring. Oh, and I barely got any sleep, because there were 3 children crying at night in the ward. Day 3 is much more interesting. On this day, The physiotherapist came and told me I should relearn how to walk. She trains me to stand up, gets mad at how I'm not standing straight. Mercy pulls, my knees just got operated on, and we begin walking for a few steps. I need a lot of support and it hurts like absolute hell, but it's progress at least. I can make it to the toilet, but I still refrain from using it as sitting down on the low toilet would hurt. Worse than hell. We also remove the bandages on my chest. The doctors say they look pretty good. He adds a waterproof transparent spray thingy onto my wound so I can sponge bath easier. I got a bit of a fever, presumably from an infection, but it's nothing serious. And the night is much better, only 2 kids cry. Day 4. I practice walking a bit more, and I can walk down the entire hallway. I need support for this though. The physiotherapist decides that now I am slowly regaining the ability to walk. I can go now. Dismissal forms are prepared and I leave before lunch. I take an ambulance home, as I live in Singapore, where ambulances don't cost your life savings. Flex on the Americans. First time in an ambulance, so pretty neat. I spend the rest of day 4 chatting with sisters and forcing my sis to buy me video games. And I can finally sleep without crying children. Yes, week 1, day 5, 6, 7. Pretty boring, spent most of it playing video games lol. Week 2, I begin making progress in walking by myself. I can walk a good 5-10 minutes without rest. This is actually really good progress. I'm shocked how fast I healed. I also revisit the hospital and they remove the stitches in my knee. Nice. Week 3, this is where we are now. I can walk for up to 15 minutes, longer than I could ever imagine last year. Wow, I'm super happy to be at this point. Today, I will try to use the stairs and see if I'm capable of doing that. I'll update y'all if it's successful. I would also like to thank everyone for leaving nice comments on my previous post. I appreciate all the kind words. Life is getting better now, and I'm glad I'm still alive. I'm excited to enjoy every moment of life, now with the ability to walk. I'll gladly reply to any questions y'all have. TLDR, survived a surgery, almost died again, did a few x-rays and made good progress on relearning to walk. I'm happy now. Mini update in comments. May 6, 2022, 2 months later. I can now do like 2 stories worth of stairs. Very good development, from someone who until 2 months ago was wheelchair bound. Update post 4, December 19, 2022, 9 months from OG post. Title, many months later, still alive. Lots has changed. Hey guys, it's been ages. Sorry for the lack of updates. I've been busy living life and I'm admittedly kind of a lurker nowadays, and don't post or comment much. So what has changed? Some good and bad things have happened. My ribcage feels completely fine nowadays. I can breathe without issue. Hooray for nitrogen and oxygen. Thanks for being able to enter my lungs without making them touch egg-sized tumors. Unfortunately, my legs have regrown some tumors, and they hurt again. The doctors don't want to operate again, as the tumor is near some major nerves this time around, and would also take a lot of digging through muscles and stuff. So I'm back in the wheelchair, with limited walking abilities, about 10 minutes max. I guess breathing is a lot more important than walking, so I'd consider the surgery to still be a beneficial thing. Regardless, I have a few things to talk about. I have gotten a lot of messages from people concerned about me. That's why I want to make this post. First up, some people want to share my post on other platforms, while others did it without asking LMAO. Feel free to do it, just link my Reddit post account. Secondly, some people with the same illness as I am wanted to reach out to me. Sorry for not responding, I have so many DMs and I simply don't look at them all. I'll probably get to you in a while. The last thing, a lot of people complimented my writing styles in those posts. Thank you very much, I try my best to make my English teachers proud. I'm also considering getting a writing career, though it seems very difficult to do so. Might consider writing short stories and making money from Patreon. And that's all I have to say. I'm somewhat happy with my life. Maybe one day I'll walk for more than 10 minutes again. But until then, thank you for all the support. Thank you for the many kind messages. Thank you for making me so much less stressed on March 9th. Someone in the comments told me the percentages were for old people, and I was actually very likely to survive that surgery. That was assuring. Thank you, kind stranger. Love you all, and adios. New update, added to original post. March 5th, 2024, 2 years from OG post. Edit 4. Hey, I've recently turned 16. Just wanted to give an update on my life. I'm still sick, unfortunately, that's the sad part of chronic illnesses, but that's alright. I've coped with it, and I thank you for reading this, for whatever reason, years later. Also, I know that the percentages my younger self wrote was absolute nonsense according to a few commenters. Apologies, I was a 14-year-old who was panicking because of a surgery. My odds of survival were likely much higher than I anticipated back then. Still, this post really did portray how I felt before a possibly life-changing surgery. Once again, thanks for taking the time to read this really, really old post. I hope you enjoyed my story. My best friend is telling me that my boyfriend cheated with her, but he says that she's lying. How do I get to the truth? I've been best friends with Becca since 2010. We were college roommates, and then after we graduated we still lived together until I moved in with my boyfriend Nate in 2019. One thing about Becca is that she's always had a drinking problem for as long as I've known her, and she's done stuff while drunk that has sometimes caused problems in our friendship. She does try to stay sober, but every few years something will happen to make her start drinking again, which is what happened earlier this summer. So last Saturday Becca called me because she was drunk somewhere and needed a ride home. I couldn't go pick her up because I had the flu and I was on cold medicine, so Nate went to get her instead. A couple of days after that I started noticing that Nate was being weird with his phone. Normally he leaves it out on the coffee table if we're watching TV or whatever, but he started putting it face down so I couldn't see what notifications he was getting. My first thought was that he was trying to plan a surprise, and because of the timing I thought that maybe Becca was helping him. Yesterday I saw Becca. I told her that Nate was being sneaky all of a sudden and asked her if he said anything about maybe proposing soon. She asked me if I looked through his phone and I said no. Becca started crying and told me that she and Nate hooked up in his car the night that he came to pick her up. Her excuse was that she was really drunk and didn't fully know what she was doing. She said she'd been texting him since, telling him that he needed to tell me what happened or else she was going to. I asked Becca to show me the texts, but they were all in the app Signal, which deletes messages after a day, so all I could see was that she and Nate had a chat thread but nothing that they said. I told her to text Nate in front of me so I could see what he said, and she did, but we got no read receipt and so no response at all, so it didn't prove anything. I asked Becca if she was sure she wasn't so drunk that she maybe imagined it or thought a dream was real, and she absolutely lost her shit on me and said that she knows that she's horrible when she drinks but that she's not fucking delusional and she doesn't make shit up. She said that I could believe her or not, and it's my choice, but she was telling me the truth. I said I needed to go home and talk to Nate. So when I got home I confronted Nate with what Becca had said, and he acted shocked and denied that anything like that had happened at all and said he didn't know why she'd think so or say so. He said that he had just given Becca a ride home and the only thing that happened was that they talked about how he and I had been together for a long time and how we should get married already. He admitted they were talking on Signal the next couple of days, but he said that it was about exactly what I thought, that he was asking her about engagement rings and what kind of proposal I would want. Nate replied to Becca's message from before asking her if she made up a story about them hooking up to not ruin the surprise about his proposal, and she texted him back that there was no proposal and to stop playing dumb. So then Nate called her pretending like I wasn't in the room and told her that she needed to stop whatever she was trying to do because we were on the verge of breaking up and he'd rather just have the surprise be ruined, but Becca just kept telling Nate to stop lying until he got angry and hung up on her. I really didn't know what to think, and I still don't. Right now Nate is really upset and not really talking to me much. He says that it's bad enough that Becca acted insane and ruined his plan to propose, but it's even worse that I believed her lies even a little and would think that he would ever cheat on me. Becca texted me saying she was sorry, but otherwise I haven't talked to her either. I don't want to think that Nate would cheat on me or that he'd take advantage of Becca if she was that drunk, but I feel like I can't be 100% sure because I've known Becca for 13 years and I also just can't believe that she'd lie to me about something this important. And I know that she does have a drinking problem. So I can believe that she'd sleep with my boyfriend if she was drunk out of her head. She's done some pretty awful things in the past when she's been drunk. I don't want to wrongly accuse Nate of something he didn't do, but I don't want to be an idiot. Relevant comments. Signal doesn't automatically delete messages unless you turn that feature on. Would he have? It's not the automatic default, but if Nate created the chat with Becca and set it for messages to disappear after 24 hours, then all of her messages with him will do that without input from her. Someone asks what OP wants help with. Sleuthing ideas, who is more believable, revenge, etc. I think what I initially wanted was just a sounding board for who sounded more believable. But someone gave me the tip that you actually can recover messages from Signal, so when I have a chance later tonight I'm going to try to do that to see if I can get some actual proof of what happened. But so far I haven't talked to anyone else about this though. I really just don't want to spread around what didn't happen to the rest of my friends or family without actually knowing for sure. What else has Becca done to you while drunk? So in the past when she's been drunk, Becca's blacked out and started fights with me or other people. She'll say really out of line insulting things. She's kicked people out of our apartment because she didn't remember inviting them in. She's accused me of stealing clothes from her because I was wearing an outfit that looked like something that she also owned. That kind of thing. She's never hooked up with anyone that I was dating, but she's definitely hooked up with guys that she knew I was interested in. Who has the greater motivation to lie here? Nate or Becca? Becca did have a big problem with Nate when we first got together, and she was really upset when I moved out of our apartment to move in with him. I could see her still being angry about it or still not liking him but just not saying anything. From what Nate said, they weren't making the plans on Saturday, but Becca brought up that it's been 7 years and asked why we're not married yet, and then the day after he asked her about rings. What is her reason for not liking him? So at the time she was in one of her longest stretches of being sober and she said that I was abandoning her for some guy when she needed my support the most. And then when I moved out, she tried to make it out like she wouldn't be able to stay sober without me living with her. And Nate basically had to step in and point out that she couldn't stay sober anyway, so to stop guilting me. It's possible she blames you for her current drinking, and Nate saying he wants to propose triggered her anger for some reason. Everything you say here makes sense to me. Becca has said stuff like this in the past, not specifically about Nate, but sometimes when she starts drinking again she acts like it's unfair that I'm not getting dragged down with her or doing more to help her. And I think on some level she might still think it's his fault that I moved out and don't keep as close an eye on her as I did back when we lived together. I don't know if she'd really go as far as to lie about something like this just for that reason. I really hope she wouldn't, but I could completely believe that she feels like this. Update 1. So on Thursday night, after I got everyone's advice, I told Nate that I had found out a way to recover deleted messages from Signal. He immediately took out his phone and opened the app and asked me to show him how to do it. So I already thought that must mean he was telling me the truth because he didn't panic or hesitate at all. Which was good, because when I tried to download Signal on my old phone it turned out that it's too old to support the current version of the app, so it wouldn't work. Nate then asked me if we were going to have to go out and buy a new phone for me to believe that he was telling me the truth, and he said that he was willing to do it if that's what it would take. I told Nate it wasn't that I didn't believe him. I just wanted to have some proof because I just couldn't understand why Becca would lie about it. Nate said that she would lie about it because she's a fucking crazy drunk bitch and there's literally no way for a non-crazy person to understand why she would do anything. And once the messages proved that he didn't ever want me talking to her again. Then he said to get up because if we were going to go to the Verizon store we had to get there before it closed. By then I completely believed Nate anyway, so I told him we didn't have to go anywhere or get a new phone and that I believed him and I knew he didn't cheat on me and that he would never do that. Nate said that he would hope I know that and that he didn't understand why I didn't take his word for it in the first place. I started trying to explain why I didn't want to just immediately dismiss what Becca had said happened, but Nate said that he really couldn't listen to that right now. I said that was fair and agreed that I would cut Becca off, but that first I wanted to try to get her to admit that nothing happened. Nate said fine, but to call her with my phone on speaker because he thought he also deserved to hear her admit that she was lying. So I called Becca and I said the same thing to her that I said to Nate, that I figured out how to recover deleted messages on Signal. She asked me why I would need to do that. So that was when I knew for sure that she was definitely making it up and not just confused somehow. I said it was because I wanted to have proof of what she and Nate talked about. Becca asked me if I saw their messages, so I lied and said yes. After that, Becca just went silent until finally I asked her if she was going to say anything. Then she asked me if that meant that we were engaged now. So then I really just lost it on her and screamed at her, asking her if she was fucking serious and what the fuck was wrong with her and how could that possibly be all that she had to say. Becca started screaming back, telling me to fucking calm down and about how obviously I never believed her anyway because it's not like we broke up over it. I was crying by that point and because of that I couldn't really say anything else. So then Nate told Becca to go fuck herself and to never ever contact either one of us ever again and hung up on her. A minute later, Becca sent me a completely unhinged text that I'm quoting here verbatim, apart from changed names. Courtney, you're supposed to be my friend for life. You're supposed to be there for me. You are supposed to be my person. But then you meet Nate and now you only care about Nate. Everything is about Nate. Tell me why Nate comes to pick me up when I call you. I called you, not your precious fucking Nate. I only want you to see how fucked up this is, but do you? No, of course you don't. Of course you choose Nate over me like you always do and like you always will. You pretend to care about me, but I can see you don't care. It is pathetic, Courtney. You are a pathetic woman who would choose a man over a friend. But since you can't say it yourself, I will. Since you have to have your sweet perfect little baby Nate do it for you, I will. Goodbye, Courtney. Is that what you want? Goodbye forever. I hope you fucking got what you fucking want. There were the 3 dots after that showing she was still typing more, but I blocked her before she sent it. I don't care about anything else that she has to say. I'm sure it's all just going to be more bullshit about why this is my fault or justifications about why what she did wasn't that bad and I should forgive her. I know Nate is probably right and there's no non-crazy logic behind why Becca would stoop to doing something like this, but obviously I've still been thinking about it and my best guess is that whoever said that Becca still blames me and Nate, apparently mostly Nate, for her being a drunk mess who can't get her life together is right. It seems like she somehow thought that if she said she hooked up with Nate, I'd break up with him but still want to be friends with her and then everything would magically be fixed. As far as stuff with Nate, I asked him if he thought he could ever forgive me for doubting him and he said that since I came to my senses and I cut Becca off he guesses we can try to put it behind us. I don't think he's still going to propose anytime soon. After this I probably wouldn't if I was him. And from what Nate said he didn't actually do any planning yet other than asking Becca about rings and if I'd think a public proposal was tacky or not. All he was doing so far was trying to get ideas without me knowing he was talking to her about it. So just based on that I think probably it's not going to happen for a while if it still does at all. Also thanks to everyone for the advice and support. I know I didn't respond to many comments but I really did appreciate everyone who cared enough to want to help. Relevant comments. Commenter. I'm curious if Becca ever said anything to you when she hooked up with guys you liked. Do you think she was blocking you on purpose to keep you for herself? Did she try anything with Nate before you were exclusive? Or was she just drunk and looking for hookups? OP. I don't think she ever put enough thought into those hookups to be malicious like that. She was just inconsiderate and would go after whoever. Commenter. Did you ever confront her or just let it go? More than one time seems like a pattern. OP. We definitely got into arguments about it at the time, but it was mostly just kind of college bullshit and not really an actual confrontation about why she kept doing it, I guess. One last thought from OP. I'm sure she won't just go away. I'm already expecting her to try to get our other friends to get in the middle of everything as soon as she figures out she's actually blocked and I'm not just ignoring her. I hope she won't try to do anything else but I guess at this point I really can't know with her. I'm hoping things are okay with Nate. I think in a while they will be. Update 2. I haven't logged into this account for about a year, but I got a few messages asking for an update so here it is. I'll keep it as short as I can. Unfortunately I have nothing good to report. It turned out that whatever was going on with Becca that caused her to make false accusations about Nate was the beginning of some kind of a psychotic break. After I blocked her, she made a whole bunch of fake accounts and started sending me completely unhinged shit about how I ruined her life and threatened to get revenge on me and Nate. This went on for literally months with her sending me dozens of messages a day. I found out from other friends that she was making multiple posts on Facebook every day that were semi-coherent rants about how much she hated me and how I was evil and ruined her life intentionally. I tried to talk to the police 2 different times to get a restraining order because I was afraid that Becca was going to show up at our apartment and attack me, or Nate. I literally even got a front door camera because I was so scared that she was going to hurt us. The police said that because Becca wasn't threatening actual violence she was just a nuisance and they couldn't do anything. They acted like I was an idiot because it isn't illegal to talk shit on Facebook and they basically told me to just keep blocking her whenever she made a new account and eventually she'd get bored and move on. Then finally there was an incident where someone broke the windshield of Nate's car while he was parked at his work. I guess it could have just been a random act of vandalism because his wasn't the only car that got windows broken, but at the time I was 100% sure it was Becca's so I went to the police again. Eventually an officer went to talk to Becca and she said she didn't touch Nate's car and again I have no proof that she did. But after the police talked to her, Becca got put into a psych ward for a week because apparently her apartment was filthy and she was drunk out of her mind 24/7 and a danger to herself. I have not heard anything from Becca after she left the psych ward. I don't know if she was diagnosed with something or if she's medicated now or what. I found out that she moved in with her dad who, thank God, lives in a different state. I look at her social media every so often to make sure she's not posting about me again and that she's nowhere around me. I haven't mentioned Nate much in this update because we're no longer together. He broke up with me after the windshield incident because he couldn't handle being constantly harassed by Becca and to be honest I don't think he ever forgave me for not taking his side immediately when everything started. It really hurt but I can't blame him. I tried to talk to him about fixing things between us after Becca was gone but he just wasn't interested. My husband and I took in my best friend and her 3 kids after a tragedy, but now I'm regretting it. Original post. My 30F best friend, 29F, just recently lost her husband, home, car and all income. Her husband suddenly passed and was the only one working while she stayed at home with her 1 twins and 4 They had nowhere to go, so we took them in until she could save up enough to get an apartment. There was no life insurance. My husband isn't happy that they are here. He has told me that he does not like my friend at all, that she has taken me away from him and has taken his home away. He is paranoid that she is stealing our things when we aren't home and wants to put locks on our bedroom and office doors, as well as put cameras in them. Today my friend went into our room to smoke a cigarette on our patio to take a second away from her kids when we weren't home. She called me to tell me that she was going onto our patio, and my husband started freaking out. Now he says he feels like he needs to get an apartment, that he doesn't feel safe, he doesn't have a place in our home that they don't have access to. It breaks my heart that he hates my friend so much when she hasn't done anything. She's just going through one of the toughest times in her life. But I don't know if I'm being too trusting of my friend and inconsiderate of his feelings, or if he is being too paranoid. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter: I think there needs to be discussion of a timeline for when she is leaving. He agreed to take her in the short term. At least that is the impression I got reading this. So he needs to chill a bit about them living in his space. That being said, suddenly having another woman he doesn't like and 3 kids in the house is understandably not awesome. I think the solution is to set a timeline for when she is leaving. Help her find a place, as her friend, but stick to the timeline. OOP. Downvoted. The agreement was a medium-term stay, 8 months to get her kids into daycare, get a job, save up for a car and home. I do think it was a mistake to not have a solid move-out date set for her. Definitely time to set that. She's only been here for a month now. OOP answers some questions. I agree that she should not have gone into our bedroom while we weren't home, and I need to re-establish these boundaries with her immediately. I have no problem with him putting the cameras and locks up if this makes him feel better, even though I will be talking with her. I don't have the option to be too afraid to talk to her. My husband is my priority over her feelings. Daycare/job. She is waiting to get approved for government daycare assistance, but yes, she is actively looking for work in daycare. She's only been with us for 1 month. The office door is always locked and she has not gone in there at all, and she has not gone into our bedroom besides that one time. I guess that I'm aware of. Commenter: if you are in the United States, the children would be eligible for Social Security benefits. You should encourage your friend to apply for those if she hasn't already. Your friend and her children may also qualify for Medicaid health benefits too. OOP. She has been applying for everything possible. I will make sure she also has applied for these. Thank you. Commenter: this OP, how long are they already in your home? Who is paying for food, diapers, and the very important cigarettes? Are you so sure your husband is not right and she is snooping everywhere where she should not snoop? When you live with friends, you get to know them. Why do you not let your husband put up cameras? Are you afraid he is right, and do you not want to stand up against your friend for your husband? And if your husband is wrong, he will be reassured. Look, it is a lousy situation for your friend to be in, but this is the choices her husband and she made. She has to get her shit together ASAP for her kids' sake. There is leaning on someone and taking advantage of someone. OP. She has been here for 1 month now. She is getting government assistance for food and diapers. We have a stash of cigarettes we've been giving her because we don't smoke, and a common gift from my husband's family when they visit from overseas are cigarettes. I have known this woman for 15 years, and I wouldn't for a second think she would steal from us. There is no way for me to know 100% unless we put cameras up, which we will be doing. We already have cameras in the front yard, backyard, and living room. It's not that I'm not letting him, I did think it was just a bit excessive. We can put locks and cameras up. I disagree on this situation being her fault, but I 100% agree she needs to get her life together for her and the kids. But it takes more than 1 month to do that, commenter. Not to mention that her OOP's husband is Chinese, which means other cultures, other ways of dealing with things. They are known to be very reserved compared to Occidental people. And from OP's post history, it seems that their home is a constant shelter for any friend of hers. I'd be freaking out too if I'd gotten married and ended up running a shelter for people, not being able to be with my family. And my family only, for some time. And we're not even talking about all the other issues here. Who's paying the bills? Who's buying food for all of them? How even your very own bedroom is all of a sudden occupied by someone else? OP has to make a choice. Does she really want to be married? It seems to be the female version of the "my husband got married but is still behaving like he's single" story. OOP, yes, he is Chinese. Our home has not been a constant shelter, although I do need to be better at saying no to my friends in need. She is the second person to stay with us. The first friend was a disaster, and I won't make that mistake again. He was 100% on board with helping my current friend out. Her situation is heartbreaking, especially for her children. We did not want them to be homeless. There are a lot of details about their story that are just so fast-seeking sad. She has no bills and she gets government assistance for food and diapers. Our room and the office are off limits, and I will be re-establishing these rules and boundaries today. She cannot and will not be allowed to do what she did again. I disagree that I am acting single. We both agreed to help a family in need. But it's hard and I'm realizing I need to be more firm with her. But I cannot read the mind of someone who tells me there is no problem until 1 month in. Commenter, it's his home too. Was he even part of the decision? She needs to find her own place. She can't stay with you forever. OOP, we discussed the decision for a few weeks before letting her move in. We were both 100% on the same page at first, until now. It's obvious that she cannot stay forever. She has only been here for 1 month. To another commenter, he was at first. We were both kind of excited to have the kids here, since we've been trying for children for over a year. We discussed her moving in extensively before allowing her to, and he was 100% on board. To a third commenter asking if he had a say, he did, he's the one that originally brought it up. Commenter, why is she not staying with family? OOP, she has no reliable family. Honestly, it breaks my heart that absolutely no one on her side or her husband's family has helped or even reached out on their own. I've known her for 15 years and it's always been that way. She was staying with her grandparents in another state for a few months, but they are elderly with a lot of health problems and it became too much for them to handle in a 2-bedroom condo. To another commenter, her family is horrible. Her mother was in prison when she graduated high school, and her father kicked her out at 17 for not dropping out of school to care for his new child. It's very sad. His family. There was no contact with his family even before he passed, unfortunately. She's taking advantage of you. She is not taking us for granted at all. She keeps the house clean, cleans up after herself and her children, has assistance for groceries and diapers, waiting to get approved for other assistance. This is the only problem we've had with her in the month she's been here. Her situation is heartbreaking, especially for her 3 children. If it was just her, we would have said no. My husband and I were on the same page with letting her stay. We agreed to 8 months, but I do agree that we need to set a specific move-out date. Commenter, did you agree with your husband for her to stay for 8 months? Why save to get a car? She needs a deposit for house rental. She doesn't have a job. Who will help with childcare? I think you entered this in good faith, but it's such a burden to take on. OOP. Yes, my husband set the 8 months timeline. She will need a car to get herself to and from work, as well as her children to and from daycare. Public transport where we are is non-existent. She's rebuilding from zero, it's gonna be hard. Commenter, 51% of Americans have life insurance, so it's actually more than half. It's very kind of you to help, but again, them not being prepared for life to happen is not your responsibility. You must pick your poison. OOP, agreed. But my husband and I cannot in good conscience let 3 babies be homeless because of their parents' bad decisions. Update post. This update is a few weeks overdue, but a lot has happened. It's so hard to fit every single detail of a situation in one post, especially while trying to respect my friend's privacy while going through such a rough time. But I took a lot of y'all's advice. I apologized to my husband and asked him what boundaries he has and what needs to change for him to feel more comfortable. We did have this conversation before they moved in, but things are so different than expected. I realized that I was putting my friend before my husband, and it was a harsh wake-up call. My husband wasn't thinking about leaving me, but he was definitely unhappy. I am glad we had this talk because we have been a lot happier being on the same page. Well, we sat down and talked to my friend and it went great. She apologized for going into our bedroom when we weren't home and agreed that it was unacceptable and will not happen again. I told her the bedroom and study were off limits, no exceptions. Her children need to keep their toys in the playroom we made for them and not downstairs so they aren't taking over the entire house. She agreed to these things completely. We changed the door locks on the 2 rooms, as well as added cameras, and a safe for valuables. Most importantly, we told her she needed to get a job and her children in daycare ASAP and gave her a hard deadline of April 1st. She took the whole conversation really well and said she needed this to happen so she could get out of her sadness and start building her life for her and her kids. 5 days later, she got a job and found a daycare for her children. It's been a complete switch in the energy in the house. My husband and I are spending more time alone in our home together and all of our set boundaries have been respected. To everyone that said they'd never take in their friend and 3 kids, that is exactly why she has nowhere else to go. No one said yes. It's been rough on everyone, but my husband and I are confident in our decision to help, even more so now that we both feel listened to. He has also worked on his anger towards said friend and feels more at ease while talking to her and existing in the same space. It also helps that he sees she is taking our rules and deadlines seriously and acting accordingly. Reddit obliterated me, and while I don't agree with kicking her out, I appreciate the brutalness that made me realize I was not backing my husband the way I vowed to. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. Children in daycare. You are delusional, she cannot afford that. OOP. No, she can't. She has assistants and found an in-home daycare that is working with her. She still has to pay some, but it's a lot more manageable. Her smoking. Her smoking isn't my concern. If I put my energy into micromanaging everything she does, I'd go insane. She got her children in a daycare and got a job. I'd say she is getting her shit together. Commenter. Yikes, April, she should be out of their way before then. OOP, 6 months to start from scratch is almost not enough time. We are happy with the move-out date. Commenter. I don't know if I said it in the other post or not, but keep in mind that if you let someone stay in your home, you will have a hell of a time getting rid of them if your friend suddenly decides she doesn't want to leave. OOP. I'm not sure how much these will actually help, but we did create a written contract with the rules and move out the date that we all signed. Maybe it won't really hold up in court, but it's something. Commenter. So glad things worked out. Friends needed some boundaries too. OOP. Yes. I was so stressed about having too many rules, I didn't even think about the fact that it'd be so helpful for her as well. Commenter. That's good y'all had the talk. I definitely couldn't take in someone and their 3 kids. But one thing for sure, and she should have definitely known this, is you never go through the owner's bedroom. That is like a sacred area. My parents never told me that as a kid, but I've always thought that. It's the one area in the house you do not enter without permission. No idea what she was thinking going in there. OOP, her kids just lost their dad and don't fully understand it. They have meltdowns sometimes, and at the worst they all have a meltdown at the same time. She was desperate for a safe space for herself, which I can understand, but she can't compromise our safe space in the meantime. Go out back or front and lock the door, lock the bathroom door, etc. Motherhood seems intense. Commenter. You did well considering taking in a single mom with 3 kids. We need more PPL like you and your husband, PPL who don't get scared to sacrifice their comfort over someone else's living. I am 100% sure, all the good deeds you do to those kids and mom will come back in 100x more. You never know what life is planned for you. Once my parents took in a woman with 6 kids, 2 own children and 4 adopted, where husband tragically lost his life. Since then I have 6 more siblings. I am grateful to Allah for them. OOP, it was not an easy decision to make and even more not easy living in it, but my heart broke as I witnessed them jump from house to house and have no idea what was happening or when they would see their dad again. My husband and I are fighting a fertility battle, so in a way I took all of my sadness of not being the same to conceive and poured it into the 3 little ones. The experience we've gotten to prepare us for parenthood has been irreplaceable, and the love I have for them is deeper than I could have ever expected. I truly hope that my husband and I made a difference in their lives, giving them a place to be stable and safe. Our discomfort has a checkout date, theirs doesn't. Thank you for sharing your story with me. I'm pregnant and my boyfriend wants me to hold off on the abortion for his kink. How do I decide what to do? My boyfriend, 28M, and I, 22F, have been together for 4 years, but we were friends a couple years before that. When we were just friends, he had a FWB that he got pregnant. He doesn't want kids, so he didn't want her to keep it and offered support with an abortion. She wanted to keep it, so he said he'd pay child support and some other stuff but wouldn't be involved in the kid's life beyond that. They kept sleeping together while she was pregnant and then again when she was about 3 months postpartum. One day he had a little party with some of his friends and I bought a couple of my friends. This part is a bit NSFW. We were all drinking and a bit high and he ended up telling us that he sucked her nipples and drank some of her breast milk. He said it tasted kinda good and we all laughed. He stopped seeing his FWB when the kid was about 6 months old. A year or so later, when we first got together officially, he told me that he actually loved it and would sometimes get off on it. My boyfriend has always loved playing with my boobs and I kinda lean into it a bit when we have sex. When we moved in together 2 years ago, I walked in on him getting off to that kind of porn and he told me he has a bit of a kink for it. There's the kind of backstory and I apologize for how terribly worded the next part is. I've been crying LOL. I'm child-free, definitely really do not want kids ever, and I'm super cautious about taking the pill. I started feeling kinda nauseous, dizzy about a month ago, but I've been drinking a lot lately. Mental health has gotten worse LOL. My boyfriend was watching a video we made a couple years ago and commented that my boobs have gotten bigger. I got a bad feeling, so we went to buy a pregnancy test and I'm fucking pregnant. I cried as I booked a doctor's appointment and I got really drunk that night. Abortion was always my plan if worst came to worst, so I was just holding out for the appointment so I could get referred to have it done. But the doctor said I was 14 weeks. I was so horrified. When my boyfriend and I got home, he offered me some wine so I drank and cried. When I was feeling better, he made a joke about if I could lactate. I asked him WTF he meant. He mentioned his FWB and drinking her breast milk and said he'd like to try mine. I was pretty drunk and thought he was joking. But nope. I reminded him I'm getting an abortion and he said he knows but wanted to see if I'd start it during pregnancy. I googled it and apparently you can start lactating at like 16, 22 weeks. His idea is that we hold off on the abortion until the absolute last minute so he can see if he can try my breast milk. Where we live, I can get an abortion up to 20 weeks. He says I probably won't get pregnant again, so it'd be the only chance he'd get. To be honest, I've been drunk or high since I found out I was pregnant. This is like my worst nightmare. He's been so sweet and caring since we found out, and my mind's not really in a good place, so I agreed to hold off on the abortion for a while. I'm 16 weeks now and I don't see any sign of milk production or anything. I'm really freaking out now that if I keep waiting, I might not be able to get the abortion and be stuck pregnant and having to give birth. I literally cannot give birth, like I fear it more than death. I don't know, I know it means a lot to him and I've just really been trying to pretend this pregnancy doesn't exist, but now it's starting to hit me. My boyfriend says it'll work out and I'll be able to get the abortion, but I'm honestly really scared. I'm at uni and I've been missing all of my classes and assignments and just staying in our bed the past few days. I know it's not good for me, but I also don't want to disappoint my boyfriend. Like, he's so excited. I don't know what to do. I don't know if he's right and that we can wait a bit longer. I'm losing my mind, so advice would be so helpful, please. I just can't think straight. How would I tell him I don't want to keep going? TLDR, my boyfriend has a thing for breast milk feeding. I'm 16 weeks pregnant and he wants us to hold off the abortion to see if I can lactate. I'm worried I won't start lactating and I won't be able to get the abortion if I wait. He's so excited and I love him so much, but I just don't know if I can keep doing this to myself. Edit. Thank you all. I feel so stupid and naive now and I hate myself so much. It's late here, but I'm going to get the abortion as soon as I can. I just don't know how to approach it with my boyfriend. I feel like he'd probably be okay maybe, and I saw some people saying you could maybe induce lactation without pregnancy, so maybe he'll be more okay if I tell him that. I do really love him and I know the comments are harsh, but he is normally a good guy. I just don't know why he's been like this. I've been high, drunk and/or both for most of the time the past couple weeks, and so I just haven't had a clear mind. I don't think he realizes how much pain I'm in and how horrible this is for me. I don't want to break up though. I'm really happy otherwise in our relationship. Edit. My sleeping pills are kicking in, so I'll be replying tomorrow to the rest. I want to reiterate that I'm getting the abortion and calling tomorrow to see how soon I can get it done. I appreciate all the comments and I feel really terrible with myself that all this has happened. Like, truly I just feel rotten. Edit. Over a day later at this point. I've made the necessary appointments for the abortion and the prior test scans. I've got it scheduled and I'm following through. I vaguely told my mom that I'm having an abortion and may need some help, and I'm not too sure about my relationship at the moment. I didn't want to go into too much detail with her, but she said she'll be there for anything I need, with the abortion and/or him. I just want to get the abortion over with before I deal with the boyfriend stuff. IDK. I feel overwhelmed. I appreciate all the helpful and kind comments on here. Also, I was on Twitter earlier and saw this post come up on my timeline. It felt so weird to see that, but I appreciate all the help and support over there too. Thank you all. I know I've been very stupid, but I'm trying. I think I've been out of it for quite some time and just now finally waking up. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Please leave this psycho today. I wouldn't be surprised if he baby trapped you. What he did to his ex is vile. Or if you don't want KDs, get your tubes tied. He will then dump you because you can no longer fulfill his fantasy. OP, downvoted. I don't know, I really love him and he's been my biggest support through uni and with my mental struggles. He really doesn't want kids, so I don't think he'd baby trap me. He knows how much I would hate having to give birth. I do want to get sterilized, but cost is a barrier right now. He has been helping me save up for it and takes care of most of our expenses. Though comment 2, do not do this. Do not sacrifice your bodily autonomy and mental health for your boyfriend's kink. The way he's excited while you're reacting in horror, he should be way more sensitive to what is a terrifying thing for you. I also wouldn't be surprised if he is trying to baby trap you. I know a lot of people on this subreddit jump immediately to dump him, but it's sometimes justified. And in this case, OP, he's sure it'll work out some way, and I think that's why he doesn't seem too worried. But I know he doesn't want kids. He's only seen his son when he was at his FWB's house hooking up back when he would have been 6 months and not since. He was helping me save for sterilization, so I don't think he'd baby trap me. He is sensitive, I think. He's been more affectionate and buys me my favorite snacks even though I don't really have an appetite. IDK, I just wish I wasn't doing this. Comment 3. Abort both the baby and this relationship. WTFOP. Downvoted. I love him and we've been planning a future together and he's so sweet, like he's been helping me financially while I study and I don't want to lose him. I really want to lose this baby though, I can't stand it. OP responds to multiple comments on getting the abortion and letting her boyfriend's kink being more important than her own health and well-being. OP. I'm not sure. I just think maybe that torture is worth it for him. But I also am at my breaking point. I've been drinking so much and I just keep avoiding the idea that it won't work out. I can't comprehend the worst case. I can't comprehend being pregnant right now. I'm really bad with my self-esteem, like I know it, and it's so hard to put myself first. I just wish I could close my eyes and make it go away. I'm getting an abortion. Going to call wherever tomorrow. I can't remember if it's the local hospital branch directly or through my doctor. But I'm not sure about leaving him. He didn't make a move until I was 18 and we had known each other for like 2 years at that point, so the age thing never came across weirdly for me. It's just hard reading these comments because I could never believe he'd be trying to hurt me. OP on her alcoholism problems. OP. Yeah, we became friends because his friend sold me my first ecstasy. I don't think it's weird. He never made a move on me when I was a teen. One of his friends tried hitting on me when I was almost 17, but my boyfriend told his friend to stop and would make sure I wasn't left alone with him. I have an alcohol problem, but I definitely don't want to have a substance problem. And I don't want to be a parent, let alone a single parent. You're right. It's just hard reading all these comments. Update 1. I'm using a new account to post this because I had some issues with trying to use my original account. I hope that's fine. Sorry if not. I posted last week about my boyfriend wanting me to wait until I was 19 weeks pregnant to get an abortion to see if I'd lactate because he has a breast milk kink. Abortion access is up to 20 weeks where we live. I didn't find out until I was 14 weeks pregnant and posted when I was 16 weeks. I'm now 17 weeks pregnant. And I'll start off by saying yes, I'm getting the abortion in a couple days. It is definitely confirmed. I want to say thank you again to all the helpful and supportive people. I really appreciate it. Like, I felt so overwhelmed and my life has just felt like a wreck these past few weeks, so it really helped. I felt a bit better a few days after posting. I know some people said to not tell him about the abortion, but I really hated the idea he was the person people were saying he is. Like, I just had to know what he'd say and feel, and I wanted to ask some questions. I did call my mom beforehand to tell her I was going to talk with him, so I guess I'd have some protection if things went wrong with him. IDK, the comments kinda scared me. I only told her he has a bit of a thing for pregnant women, so he wanted me to delay the abortion as much as possible for him. My mom's tone kinda changed and she said some stuff, then basically just called me a SLU and said I was disgusting for going along with that, and she couldn't support me anymore if I was doing stupid shit like that. I don't really want to get into it, but it was really hard to hear it. I felt so alone. The next day, I told my boyfriend I needed to talk. I wasn't sober, so this is my best recollection and only the main points, not the conversation verbatim. I told him how I've been feeling and I'm not into his kink and I only do it because I like pleasing him, but I can't hurt myself anymore. That I have the abortion scheduled and I'm so disgusted by the thing inside me, like I've been having bad back pain and pains and weird feelings in my stomach, and obviously my mental health. I was sobbing through it and just sorta rambled till he held me. He said he was so sorry and didn't know how bad I was feeling. He told me he thought I was okay with everything because I didn't say I wasn't. He said he'll come with me for the abortion and he'll be there with me. I fully asked him about when I was a teen. Like, I just needed to know. I didn't have much to really lose. He said he obviously found me pretty, but he wasn't attracted to me until I was 18 and only really thought of me in a different way when I made the first move the first night we slept together. The comments about baby trapping horrified me so much, so I literally said to him, like, how do you think I got pregnant? He said maybe I missed a pill or something. He didn't give off any weird vibes like he'd be lying, so I believe he didn't mess with my pill. He was apologetic about me being pregnant and again, said he didn't mean to cause me this pain. I was exhausted and just laid on his chest and cried for a while. The following couple days he's been really lovely. Like giving me massages for my back and giving me lots of attention and cooking for me. He keeps saying he's sorry and he'll do what he can to make it up to me. He suggested we go on a trip when this is over. Like, go away for a few nights and have a little holiday. The other night we had a few drinks and I was talking about Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Been a fan since I was 8, lol. 'Cause I play this app game sometimes where you guess her outfits and surprise songs for the concert, and I was filling it out. He asked when her tour ends and I said the end of the year, and he said he could try to arrange for us to go see one of them. I was like, that's so expensive and it's sold out? But he said he can see if he can make it work. I feel really supported and loved right now. I'm glad I opened up and told him. I think our relationship is in a much better place. If he reacted badly, I would probably feel differently. But IDK, it's been good. I also don't really know who else I have, TBH. My mom clearly hates me and I'm relying on government money, studying, which isn't that much, so it's not like I can afford to live elsewhere right now. I also love our lifestyle and what he does for us, so I don't want to mess that up. I doubt he'll be successful, but if he got us to see the Eras tour, that's like a dream to me. I'd for real be the happiest person. I kinda feel like if I followed some of the advice I got, I'd be in such a different and worse place right now. I'm excited to do fun couple stuff with him. Like he even brought up wine and cheese tasting or taking me shopping, like really nice dates. We had sex last night for the first time in over a week and he was really respectful, like didn't give my boobs attention, but I've been feeling adored, so I kinda indulged him. Still not into that kink personally, but I like seeing him pleased. I feel like when I get rid of this parasite, our relationship will be really strong. Like this thing has really tested us, Lumeo. So it's all good, just waiting in anticipation for the abortion. I'm gonna give my mom some time, there's been a rocky history there, so we'll see, I guess. Thank you guys again. Relevant comments. Comment 1, honorable. He knows the abortion ban, correct? Then he knows exactly what he was doing. He knows he was putting his kink over your health. He knows. You and he are trying to justify it by claiming it wasn't malicious. He knows. His intentions are moot. He knew what he was asking. He knew he was risking your health, but his sexual gratification was more important to him. OP, he knew about the abortion limit, but we don't live in the US, our abortion laws would take a long time to be revoked, but I have been telling him about those. I still don't think so. I can't really wrap my head around that. I think he just kinda thought it'd be whatever, and now he knows that's not the case, so he's trying to make it up to me. IDK, that's how I see it, but I get what you're saying. Comment 2, yeah, okay, enjoy your carnival of red flags. Not a single iota of sense in any 22-year-old, but you really hid behind a door when wisdom was being dished out. OP, aside from this, I don't really think there's any red flags. He answered my questions and I don't think he's lying. I know there was a lot of good advice, but thankfully I didn't feel the need to follow it because he's been better since we talked and I feel like things are real good. Update 2. I got notified of the Boru, and yes, the other account is me, and yes, I did get the abortion. I've been reading comments for hours and responding before my original and update posts both got removed. It's very early morning here and I know I'm gonna get shit on for this, but I'm drunk, but I just need to say, I had an abortion. And no, I do not want this to be used as any sort of anti-abortion propaganda. I've even seen some comments referring to Fox News, and I would rather gauge my own eyes out than be used as some sort of tactic to push people to be pro-life, forced birth, in my opinion. My abortion was necessary, although delayed. I understand that. I understand I fucked up so badly, but I needed that. I didn't find out until it was late, and I'm struggling with my mental health and the booze and drugs and just was in a daze. I'm so glad I made my initial post because it helped me get the abortion when I wanted it. And no, I don't live in the US. But again, I don't want this to be used at all for evidence towards draconian pro-life laws. They do not save lives. I don't want to get into politics because I really should sleep, but I don't want this to alter anyone's opinion on abortion. I'm probably like the first person to ever deal with this. I know everybody is telling me my boyfriend sucks, but I just really don't know. It's so hard to fit an entire relationship history into some posts and comments. He's been so lovely and so supportive, and I really believe in giving him another chance. I'm happy to clear up anything on here if I want. I just didn't expect this kind of response, and it's been a bit of a shock. I'm not at uni because I feel pretty shit physically, so I have a lot of time just being bored, lol. And as for the drug stuff, that's not a concern. Like, I know it technically isn't great, but I cannot use it just fine if I'm not bad mentally. I've only mainly been taking prescribed stuff since the abortion. As for the booze, yeah, I know and I agree. It's just so hard to even conceptualize sobriety sometimes. I know I need to do it, but it's also like you need to want to get sober to actually be sober, or at least be successful in it. I've tried sobriety like 3 or 4 times at this point. IDK, just please don't fucking use my dumb stupidity as pro-life incentives. I would have never, ever posted anything if I knew it would have come to that. Wife left me looking after my dying father, But she returned crawling after Dad made me a millionaire in his bequest. Married for 8 years, I am a 36-year-old man with 2 children. I also am the sole son of my sick father. You know, my dad has been dealing with renal issues for many years. Unfortunately, his condition has gotten worse over the past 2 to 3 years and he now requires twice-weekly dialysis. He could drive on his own earlier, but during the past year he usually asked me to go with him. He is becoming weaker daily as well. I had developed a schedule for myself whereby I would be dialysing my father every time. I do not want to abandon him under this state by himself. He needs to go for dialysis 2 days a week, hence I scheduled Saturday and Wednesday. I have Saturday off from work, hence it is not a problem. My supervisor gave me permission to go early on Wednesday, and then I worked late into the night after dialysis to make up the missing hours. After 10 years of employment with this organization, my supervisor has viewed me as a dedicated and devoted worker, hence, giving this particular authorization was not really important to him. Still, the issue started at home with my 34-year-old wife Ail. She became irate when she learned that I will be on dialysis twice a week bringing my dad. She was not happy when I used to take him sometimes, but she never voiced her annoyance directly. She couldn't stop herself now that I had taken up the conscientious responsibility. She claimed that wasting my time on my father was useless as, whatever I did, he would never be impressed by me. Here's a bit of background to this then. My dad runs a merchandise company. He had obtained some reasonable wealth and was rather off. I was driven about something else while he wanted me to run his company. I was drawn to technology. Creating software and programming excited me. I thus pursued a software degree after school, whereas Dad wanted me to study administration or business. He was still good with that as long as I was ready to work for his business. But once I graduated, I started working for a well-known IT company. Dad objected to me working for someone else instead of carrying on his legacy. I stalled as he insisted on having me join his company. When Dad asked me one more time whether I wanted to join after my marriage, I answered no. Dad lost it and declared he would donate all of his fortune to charity and that I would not get a penny. I stayed exactly at my choice. You see, I was doing nicely even at that age. At 29 I purchased my own house and a car. Even without his fortune, I felt rather sure I could lead a reasonable existence. I explained to him I could create wealth on my own and I didn't need his money. Our relationship broke down after that. Mom died from heart arrest 5 years ago. For Dad, it was just terrible. You know, I left the house at 17 for college, then I found work and began living alone. Dad only had Mom as his friend. Losing her would be the most terrible thing he could go through. That is when our relationship was restored. I used to take my children to play with him and started paying regular visits to him. He finally left his company and handed it to a trust to run. Ail, my wife, never hung around my parents. Ail avoided visiting my mother while she was still living, claiming that she was overly intrusive in our life and that they did not get along. Ail started candidly berating my parents for being nasty and evil when my father declared he would take me off his will. She always intervened, claiming that it would damage our future, particularly our children's, so she stayed out of my connection with my parents. She was not ready to accept that our future, that of our children, was safe regardless of Dad's wealth. Now, considering the existing circumstances, Ail became agitated when she learned I would be accompanying Dad twice a week for dialysis. I tried first to explain to her that Dad only had me. Long ago he lost his parents. Although he has an elder brother, he lives on the opposite side of the city and hardly visits. Since Mom passed away, Dad has grown quite lonely. In this state, I cannot leave him. But my wife finds this difficult to grasp. She has lately made my life unpleasant. She comes up with some agenda every Saturday. Either deep cleaning, throwing a party at the house, outing the kids, or something as little as grocery shopping. She could schedule anything she wanted on Sundays, I said, since on Saturdays I have to pick Dad for dialysis. She then later chastises me for being late or missing them, yet she keeps with her plans. I have to dash to pick up my dad, drive him to the dialysis center, then drop him back home. I then get home to see Ail's sarcasm and outbursts. Not only on Saturdays, she also does the same on Wednesday evenings. Late in the evening or at night after dialysis, I had promised my supervisor that I would make up the missed work hours. Ail, though, always has a scheme to annoy me. She would leave the duty of our children to me almost every Wednesday night, meeting her relatives, catching up with long-lost friends, or going to some haphazard party. After a busy day at the dialysis center, I have to balance my work, prepare for the children, feed the smaller one and somehow finish my outstanding chores. My dad advised me several times to let him accompany the nurse to the center as he notices me always rushing and tensely staring at my watch. I drop him home and hardly wait a second before sprinting back. I ask him to be ready and wait outside before I come even when we are picking him up. Although Dad has a full-time nurse and caregiver to look after him, I still feel guilty about not spending time with him. His dwelling to the center takes 30 minutes of drive. I used to like talking to him during such drive in past times, remembering the better days. But with Ailes' outburst rising, all I can think about is running back home. To shorten the journey time, I most of the time am overspeeding my automobile in traffic, using shortcut lanes, and passing other cars. This is the only time I spend with Dad, hence I don't want to damage or stop it by asking him to accompany the nurse. As a son, I too have some duties. Simply said, I cannot tolerate this woman anymore. Updated 1. It is simply growing worse daily. Not one stone is left unturned by my wife to discourage me from visiting my father. She makes the argument that it is a lost cause. Dad has already taken me out of his will and donated his riches to charity, hence there is no use in wasting time and effort for him. I am not sure I understand her. Do we act merely in line with profit and loss? What if someone's parents are impoverished or lack any fortune? Given little to contribute, do their children abandon them? I finally told her she wasn't going to inherit anything from her parents after listening to her outbursts for so many months. Why then does she visit her folks every now and then? She lost it at this, oh my God, then declared, my parents accomplished a lot more than your selfish father. They helped me in many aspects. They are not like your father, who turned on you for not working for his company. You dare compare my parents to yours? My father would have never done that to me. This kind of confrontation happens virtually every Wednesday and Saturday when I get back from dialysis. It is not only a one-time occurrence at my house. With every incident, it gets more intense and ugly. She used to argue with me alone earlier, but right now I watch her screaming and yelling at me in front of the kids. Not only that, I have heard her disparaging my dad in front of our kids and using them against my dad. I intervened when I heard this, which resulted in still another nasty argument between us. For me, Aiel's battles now become a ritual. I sense something is lacking on the days she doesn't fight, just for her to get more hostile the following day. Now I nearly gave up on her. I simply ignore her as though she doesn't exist. I don't yell back or answer her. Apart from what else ought I to do? I cannot give my father up to satisfy her. If he booted me out of his will, it makes no difference. He kicked me due of my own choice. I turned down his offer to work for his company, and he had to turn up his hard-earned company to a trust. It must have demoralized him rather severely. To my dad, that firm was like a baby. He had to donate it to someone else. Having offended him, he had every right to disown me. Sometimes I feel as though my hurting my dad is causing karma to bite me back. Dad, on the other hand, is growing frail. He requires assistance to step down to the automobile. He is hardly able to walk on his own. I used to ask him to drop him off outside the home so I could save time. But right now, I'm not bothered about being late. I enter to gently lead him to the car, then drop him off to rest soundly in his bed. He is also having dyspnea, so I walk him as slowly as he requires. I drive deliberately, avoiding overspeeds to maintain his heart rate steady. Getting home late now doesn't bother me. Rushing home was useless. If I have to deal with that awful woman, why not at least make Dad happy? My casual attitude has made things worse. Yesterday, Aile told me I had to decide between her dad or myself. Seeing his condition, it didn't seem like Dad had long left. I attempted to explain to her that Dad wasn't going to be with us forever. Her response was short. In that case, you need to make your choice carefully. Someone who's going to be with you forever or someone who's going to die soon. This was quite callous. You know what? I said to her. I picked my dad more wisely than you, who is so selfish and nasty to a dying man. She got ready and left her baggage. I also wanted some distance from her and she needed some time to calm off. I did not stop her. I am tending to the house, my kids, Dad, and my work while she is away. Still, I feel so calmed down and relieved. Actually, her absence helps me to relax. She sent divorce paperwork to me the day before yesterday. Though I was somewhat expecting it, I did not imagine it would happen so quickly. Though surprised, deep down I was glad and relieved. I merely signed the paperwork and returned them. I did not phone her. She obviously didn't want the kids, but surprisingly she didn't ask for custody of them. That was the one stipulation I worried about. She screamed back, "How could you just sign it without calling me and pleading with me?" When she got the documents. Funny, right? Her mother then grabbed the phone and yelled that I should have behaved like a man and attempted to call my wife back into the marriage rather than merely signing the paperwork. It was funny. Why would I do that? I went along since she wanted a divorce. I could say, "It was good for me, I got rid of her without a fuss." I also mocked her, pointing out she didn't want her children and even gave them up. She indicated I could have all my possessions, including my 2 children. She did not want any of it. Her mother also mentioned that Ayil was still young and did not want children weighing on her shoulders. I answered, "Fine by me. Having my children around me makes me happy. Though it relieves me, I am concerned about my kids. They, especially the younger one, miss their mother. It's tough for me to handle all the obligations by myself when I'm at the office, but perhaps I'll be able to sail through this." Update 2. This will be a shorter update. I followed my kids to Dad's place. It's a fantastic idea, and I have to say, thanks to everyone for the amazing concept. It went exactly. All of us benefited from moving in with Dad. Dad brought my kids along, and they played with their grandfather. Why didn't Dad have a full-time caretaker ready to look after my kids for a payoff? The finest deal is someone to look after my kids under Dad's direction. Seeing Dad playing and laughing with my kids and them having fun with their grandfather makes me very happy. Isle saw not what was ahead. By divorcing me, she aimed to ruin my life. She believed I would not be able to manage all the obligations, looking after the kids, my dad, the house and business. But everything is just exactly as it should be. I am most sure laughing last. The divorce was the best thing ever, LOL. Update 3. The news is depressing. Dad died last week in sleep. After playing with my kids, he went to bed pleased and glad and never woke up again. The doctor said he passed away quietly. Dad was delighted after I moved in with him, according to the doctor, his nurse, and even his caregiver. This somewhat extended his lifetime. Before I moved in, he was already almost giving up. Losing your only parent is quite difficult, but I'm happy he could live the last few months of his life contentedly. Although my kids are quite depressed to lose him, Dad has taught them solid values. Grandpa used to urge them to embrace reality and go on. Life never pauses for anybody. Hearing such outstanding things from them makes me very proud. In this period of hopelessness, they are really my strength. One more startling news item, nevertheless, followed Dad's death. Dad's attorney got in touch with me and asked me to visit his office to unveil his intention. I responded it wasn't necessary. Dad had previously told me he had given all his fortune to the trust, so I was fine with that and advised the attorney he should move forward with the papers to transfer everything to them. Assuming it also applied to the charitable trust, I asked him whether I should leave Dad's house. Laughing at me, he instructed me to just drop over. The trust members were already present when I visited. The lawyer had also phoned them. I started crying when the attorney began to pursue the will. Actually, Dad had willed me as his heir. All his property, business and wealth was for me. Thinking he might have done it after I started looking after him, I questioned the lawyer whether this was done recently. The attorney grinned and stated the will was never changed. I was always his heir. I was in tears. My dad never left me. Perhaps he threatened to disown me so I might honor his business and heritage. Dad's attorney calmed me, but I was still crying. I stated it kills me inside since I hurt my dad all his life, but he always cared for me. The attorney claimed that Dad was really quite happy that I was ready to sacrifice family riches in order to follow my passion under his influence. Dad gave me much pride. The attorney indicated that for now I am the business's decision maker and that, should I so wish, I could remove the company from the trust and operate it myself. I could be doing that. I pursued whatever I wanted to accomplish and Dad subtly encouraged me. It is now my time to reimburse him. I'm considering reversing it from the trust and scaling it to the level Dad envisioned for his company to reach. Telling my kids about their grandfather's will when I got home, to be received once my children become 18, he has also bequeathed some of his fortune to them. We visited his tomb today bearing some flowers and rested in peace for some time. For me, this is a somewhat emotional stage. Update 4. You know how quickly ants swarm when they spot sugar candy? I started running Dad's company and other community service projects 1 month following his death. I first resigned from my employment and assumed running of the company. Then, since my kids and I elected to reside at my parents' place, I leased my house. I also desire not to leave this house since it preserves my childhood memories and they feel linked to their grandpa here. I received numerous guests at my house, long-lost relatives, acquaintances, and neighbors, after learning I had inherited the $1 million fortune of my father. Still, my ex-wife Al and her parents were the most unexpected guests. Sobbing, they came inside the house claiming they would have gone to the funeral but they didn't know about my father's death. Her parents then praised my dad in all the right ways. Al kissed the kids and wept over how much she missed them. If she missed them so much, I asked her, why did she not visit them during the past 7 or 8 months? She claimed to have gone to our house but found it locked. What a deception it is. I asked, weren't you concerned for your kids upon learning the house was locked? Did you not think it essential to get in touch and see whether the children were all right? She gave no response. Let us forget whatever has happened in the past, her parents urged next. The kids will be left by themselves in the house when I'm at work now that my father is dead. It would be better if we reconciled since they need a mother. At this advice, I laughed in their faces. When she left her children to me, they most needed her. The kids have become used to her absence now, hence I do not want her back into my life. She began to weep. Her parents left us by ourselves. She begged for reconciliation while holding my hands. She missed seeing the kids and claimed she loved me. Laughing, I said, you know what? You cherish the fortune my dad left behind, not me. Here at my door you and your avaricious parents are here to drain off my money. Using those words for her parents is what they are, thus I have no regrets about it. During our divorce, she also called my dad unpleasant and avaricious. I could not have let this woman get one penny of my dad's hard-earned money. She became offended when I denigrated her parents. She stated till now she was begging me as she loved me, but now she would take what was rightly hers. She didn't ask for any alimony during the divorce, but now she wants half of my dad's fortune, rather, half of my wealth. She could do whatever she wanted, I told her. I'll destroy her but not pay her a penny. She fled after mistreating me. I explored this with my attorney regarding the potential. Her prospects were, he said, few. A year before I inherited anything, the divorce was settled. She couldn't get anything anyway since the kids were with me. He cautioned me, though, about having her spend time with the kids. She might control them, file for their custody, then later on demand money for their upkeep and all that. I would like to thank him most especially for this counsel. I will oversee their meetings. These days, I also spend a lot of time with the children helping them to deal with the loss so they won't rush to their mother for emotional support. Having taken over my dad's business allows me great freedom to balance my personal life and well-being. The kids and I are going to have a Bahamas holiday. Really, why not? They are due this extravagant trip. No, it has nothing to do with overspending dad's fortune. I could have gone too, but I had to balance my job and dad's care earlier and lacked the time. I wanted to take them out now that I could. Regarding Io, she hasn't got in touch with me since her most recent trip. She is probably busy suing me from every lawyer's office, knocking on every one of them. Kicked out as a teen due to false rumors spread by my brother, my parents later see my success and demand money after abandoning me. Years later, when my parents noticed my accomplishment and demanded money after they left me, I was kicked out as a teen for false rumors passed by my brother. 28-year-old female with twin brother. My twin brother and I grew up getting somewhat different treatment from our parents. As the so-called black sheep, my parents really appeared convinced, for some reason, that my brother was destined for brilliance while I was more interested in sports or hanging out with friends than in academics. Their continuous comparisons demoralized me and damaged my self-esteem. I was treated like an afterthought when a child, having to watch my brother throw lavish birthday celebrations with friends. While I was never even allowed to bring guests back to our house, he frequently slept over with them. To be really honest, I hated every minute of my youth. My grandma seemed to be the only family member who really gave me any thought. She always brought my preferred chocolates and sometimes dropped a few bucks to me so I could treat myself later when she visited us. This obvious preference for my twin brother evolved over the years into emotional abuse aimed at me. My parents would publicly criticize my hobbies and academics. No matter how hard I tried, I could seem to satisfy their ideal of the perfect child. Though I excelled in athletics, they forbade me from engaging in extracurricular activities since they wanted me to focus exclusively on schoolwork, exactly as my brother. It was annoying, and as a little child I felt powerless. I grounded once again later in my sophomore year. This time the crime was having Snapchat on my phone. Apart from all teenagers my age, I had done absolutely nothing wrong, except I had downloaded this app to keep in touch with my buddies. But since my parents had prevented me from talking with my pals, this was a major offense and a betrayal of their trust, said my parents. They went batshit insane on me, dumped all of my stuff around the room, then removed the doors from their hinges and informed me I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Seeing my parents treat me this way, my identical brother made my life worse instead of helping me. Our parents' unfair behavior produced a poisonous surroundings that let him take advantage of the circumstances. He started lying about me, accusing me of things I never done so he might get away with everything. Should he steal something, he would easily point the finger on me and my parents, already inclined to view me negatively. His falsehoods were easily accepted. He would make fun of my appearance and belittle me in front of my schoolmates. Still, I had a large group of friends at school because I was friendly and open about forming relationships. But my twin, an introvert, felt uncomfortable and started to hate that I could interact with people. When no one came up for his birthday at our 14th birthday celebration, this jealously peaked. While in sharp contrast, my friends took me ice cream and I had an overall great day. I have no idea why his friends did that to him. This enraged my brother still more. My brother started spreading false accusations about me at school, presenting me as a spoiled child, in order for retribution. Since our parents liked him more, he misled everyone by saying I was physically mistreating him at home. I had no idea he went to such a terrible degree. He would punch himself, carefully causing injuries like a black eye or bruised shoulder, in order to create evidence. He would boldly enter school the next day showing the self-inflicted injuries as evidence of my claimed brutality and create stories. He would lie, claiming that his injuries were from innocent sports like football with pals, whenever our parents asked him about them. People started to trust his twisted view of events as the lies and his claimed black eyes gained momentum. Whispers soon spread and even my friends started to glance at me with mistrust. I first observed minute changes. People who used to converse with me in the halls suddenly started to fade. Group hangouts started to get fewer and more spaced apart invitations. People hesitated to be around the apparently spoiled girl accused of aggression, as if a switch had been turned off. I plucked the bravery one day to ask my former best buddy why our relationship had deteriorated. She talked about how my twin brother had been spreading gossip about me. She exposed the thorough lies he had told everyone, charging me of things I had never done. Hearing her say startled me. The sensation was one of mistrust mixed with incredulity, as though the ground under me had collapsed. Someone I grew up with, my brother, was fabricating stories about me, accusing me of doing things I would never have even considered. That was a devastating betrayal that left me with a knot in my gut and a weighty heart. The day I addressed my brother at school, he chose to ignore me. When I urged him to stop lying about me, he grinned at me and told me I deserved to rot alone. His falsehoods and actions were beginning to worry me. Thus I found it difficult to express myself. Though I wanted to talk to my parents, I worried they would view my brother above me. Particularly considering that I had always been open to befriending others, the isolation pained. The lies driven by jealousy from my brother seemed to be destroying the relationships I had developed over years. Teachers too started to become caught in the rumors. It was a dreamlike sensation, as though I were living in a parallel universe in which the evil narrative woven by my twin eclipsed my actual self. The lies were influencing people's actual impressions of me, not only teenage chatter. They had evolved beyond simple gossip. The terrible news soon got to my principal, and suddenly my worst nightmare materialized. Along with our parents, the man called my brother and me straight into his office to go over these supposedly rumors. Heart thumping, I sat there as the principal insisted on the reality. Though I expected my brother would at last come clean, he doubled down on the lies. He told the principal straightforwardly that, indeed, the allegations were accurate and characterized me as a bully who roamed about physically assaulting him while our parents were not around. I found it hard to believe. My brother kept telling this twisted tale about how I was furious at him for getting more attention from our parents, and shock flooded over me. Though everything of it was lies, he stayed to his tale like glue. Hearing my brother's tale, my mother started to cry. She grabbed onto my brother if he were some sort of hero. Telling my brother that he was brave to speak up and that he would be ensuring nothing would ever happen to him, my dad sought to console him. That day, I tried to defend myself by begging the principal that everything was made up. Desperate to swim to the top, I felt as though I was drowning in a sea of accusations. Yet, my brother persisted in saying that I was this furious, aggressive person venting daily on him. As my mother clutched onto my brother, my tears kept flowing and I started to see accusing stares. It was like battling a wall of belief in my brother's invented narrative. Saying the school didn't accept bullying and that these were reasons to punish me, my principal chastised me severely. I begged him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, declaring he couldn't let it slip. Tears running down my face, I begged him to understand that I did nothing to help my brother. The man insisted that I would be suspended for 10 days so that others may learn from this never to bully anyone. It really hit me, and I started crying even more, almost asking him to think twice. Furious and ashamed of the overall state of affairs, my parents hauled me from the principal's office. I refused to go. They were not understanding what I intended to provide as my argument. We left the institution, my heart weighed with shame and frustration. Things changed dramatically when we arrived home. Out of the blue, my dad started packing my stuff. Startled, perplexed, I had no idea what was occurring. When my mother questioned him what he was doing, He simply yelled that he cannot allow my brother to live in the same house anymore. I begged my brother to give them the truth, almost on my knees, but he stayed frigid, unmoved by my tears. After finishing packing, my dad dumped the luggage into our foyer. Still pleading my dad not to kick me out, I grabbed to his legs. Like a dream coming to pass. A bully like me didn't deserve to dwell in his house, he told me, and he would ask his mother, my grandma, to come fetch me up should she so want. The planet seemed to have collapsed under my feet. Surrounded by my stuff strewn in the foyer, booted out from my own house, I stood there shocked. My grandmother did show up finally. She helped me get into the passenger side by gathering all my stuff and arranging it in the car. Before approaching my parents' front door, she checked to be sure I had on my seatbelt. She rang the doorbell, then started to shout at my dad for treating me this way when he opened it. She cautioned him sternly that she would not hesitate to engage the police or CPS should he ever approach me or try to get in touch once more, as what he had done to a child like me may eventually land him in prison. Trying to avoid responsibility, my mother said it was mine. But my grandmother wasn't feeling it at all. Emphasizing that I was only a young child who deserved not to be abused in such a merciless way, she stood her ground defending me. I had never felt such power in my life till then, from my grandmother. She trusted me rather than cowering to my parents as they thought. We finally left, my house the only place I had ever grown up in, behind us. It is impossible for me to adequately describe how intolerable the suffering I went through during that period. Though my grandma begged me to, I recall simply crying on the bed and not eating anything. She was likewise startled when I told her what my brother had done. She told me she thought my side of the story, and it made me glad at least one person had my back. The idea of going back to school was like stepping back into a lion's den once the 10 days of suspension ended. The faces of my students told volumes as I walked into the known hallways, judgment, murmurs, and sidelong glances. The weight of the unfounded charges hung in the air. My brother, meantime, deliberately disregarded me and behaved as though I didn't exist. A few people who saw him as the victim of my assaults and agreed his side of the story had grown friends with him. No matter how hard I attempted to present my side of the narrative to anyone, it was ignored. I was an outsider, labeled unfairly and carried around like a shadow wherever I went. The classroom, the cafeteria, the hallways, the eyes that locked with mine were contemptuous and mistrustful. I started to go alone. I would head down, show up for every class, have lunch by myself in the cafeteria, and head straight home. I had no friends, and it seemed as though everyone just didn't want me there. My parents never once phoned to see how I was doing throughout all this. My grandma would tell me again and over that life would finally be good and that this was not my fault. Having decent marks when I finished from high school, I was looking forward to college, where maybe I would have a better life. I first felt what freedom felt like only when I left for college. Nobody was monitoring my shoulders, none was comparing my marks, and none was trying to challenge me. For the first time, I ran into like-minded folks and developed friendships with them. Though my family and peers had caused emotional and physical scars over the years, I focused on putting all behind me and savoring this collegiate experience as much as I could. It was around this period that I developed my flair for content writing. Though I had always wanted to be a writer, I chose to give up on my ambition as I wasn't sure whether it would be long-term viable. But I decided to start freelancing and writing in order to pick some side money. Signing up on several freelancing platforms helped me land work from well-known companies. I began gradually compiling a portfolio of my works this way. I kept this side project throughout college and never approached my parents for one penny. Instead of landing a corporate job upon my college graduation, I discovered I could work full-time in content writing. The several clients and long-term professional ties I had with them helped them to rope me into several initiatives of theirs, thereby enabling me to be doing rather well. Having a respectable freelancing profession let me travel the globe as a digital nomad in addition to make me financially independent. Though it was certainly not easy, traveling helped me heal from past. I grabbed as much as I could and gambled on myself. I have seen so much of the globe throughout the years, yet I still have so much to see. My grandma was the only member of my family I thought about all through all this. I really loved her. When I moved out, Mother was quite depressed, yet she knew I had to be independent on my own. Though I have a busy schedule, I would make it a point to be with her whenever I could. On the weekends, I would go see her, usually sitting on the porch or enjoying meals together, lost in talks ranging from childhood stories to more current events. On weekends, I would spend whole days assisting Mom with housework or taking her for a leisurely stroll to the neighborhood park. Lately I finished one of the most significant assignments of my career. Though I cannot name the brand, I was quite fortunate to create blogs and product descriptions for them. Following the assignment, I asked the team I collaborated with to offer me favorable feedback on my website. which they were more than glad to do. Knowing working with this brand was a big event, so I grabbed screenshots of some of their evaluations to publish on Instagram. Many additional content creators, as predicted, contacted me to celebrate my professional achievement and even shared my tale to assist in dissemination. This is how I began receiving messages from random people needing assistance with their websites. Some of my family also spotted this and contacted out to congrats me. Eventually, the principal of my college got in touch. Seeing that I was doing so well, he had gotten in touch with me and asked me to visit college for a lecture to discuss career paths as a content writer to students. Though I struggle with public speaking, I was really anxious, so I decided to take a chance and consented. My life seemed to have gone full circle when I stood before expectant faces imparting my knowledge and views. In my lecture, I discussed the difficulties I encountered and how I persevered in spite of many demanding days. Empowering others and helping the writers' community flourish was, quite honestly, a really rewarding experience. As individuals related to several of my clips, they began to go popular on Facebook groups. Being at last appreciated for my effort felt fantastic. I received an invitation to speak on a local news station last week. The presentation highlighted the advantages of content writing, and they asked me to share with their viewers my path and observations. Though a little anxious, the chance excited me. I discussed my experiences, the value of client feedback, and how a little thank you note might create amazing possibilities during the show. The chance to inspire more people in the profession and appeal to a larger audience humbles and excites me. I also posted some of these snippets on Instagram when it eventually aired, as I felt honored to be asked to a TV show. My cousins and family first began learning about my work performance this way. You see, my parents had no knowledge that I was working with well-known businesses and receiving invites to TV shows, as they never discussed me with anybody. This is how rapidly information got out inside my family. I suppose this TV interview must have at last made sense to my parents. A few days later, I was working on another job and found my phone quiet. When I checked my phone after finishing my work, I found 6 missed calls from my mother. Surprised her name on my phone truly startled me, since it had been a long time since she had phoned me. After all those years of quiet, I couldn't understand why she was phoning. I hesitated, then called her back, and she picked up right away. When I asked her if everything was good, my mother started praising me. Usually seated right there with Mom, my dad also joined in the discourse. He began asking about my life and well-being, and I responded without much thinking. It wasn't odd until they started asking how much I was making these days. My dad answered that we were family, thus I shouldn't be shy sharing with them my salary, since it is none of their concern. I assured him I was doing financially really well. Hearing this, my mother started to explain how difficult their life was these days. My brows wrinkled with mistrust. Here is essentially our conversation's general flow. Mom, we have been wishing to remodel the house for some time. We are retired now. Though we have no savings left, its shape is not ideal. Me. Okay. Mom, we have hope since your success. Having seen your TV interview today, we reason perhaps you could assist us by covering the renovations costs. Dad, we are family first of all. You should not hesitate to forward some of your income to us. We truly need your assistance. Me? Are you teasing me? Having not even spoken with you for years, why are you requesting money? While I appreciate the congrats, I am not going to assist you in any capacity. I wonder what motivated you to get in touch to me. Hearing this, my mother began to remark how I should have been appreciative and that I should have helped them as family. My dad also said that this was the least I could do, since my parents deserve to be looked for. I wanted to give them some of my thinking, since I was so offended at this. I thought suddenly of something. Rather than merely fighting with them, I chose to teach them a lesson for lifetime, since mistreating me all those years ago caused them to leech off me. I informed my parents I would be ready to assist them should they agree to my requests solely. My dad asked me, perplexingly, what they were. I immediately set out my demand. If they sought my assistance, they had to openly acknowledge in front of our family and friends that my brother was the brains behind the nasty allegations damaging my name. Believing their lies and manipulation would help them to humiliate my brother the same way they had humiliated me before everyone. I wanted them to own their deeds and admit the suffering they had caused. Hearing my impossible condition, my dad started to doubt the need of such an admittance. I stood my ground, even though my mother informed me that this was all pretty pointless and that we could have a private conversation apart from others. This condition was non-negotiable. That was what any help they sought for in the future required. My dad spoke up as the tension grew, stressing his part as my father and underlining that it was my obligation to assist my needy family. Emphasizing the years they had spent raising me, my mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to act morally and assist them. Their abrupt appeal struck me as ironic. I reminded them of the past, Anita Tree, of the fact they had kicked me out, and of the fact my grandmother had reared me, not they. They were increasingly restless, but I firmly reminded them that if they wanted to approach me and ask for my financial help going forward, then the truth had to be admitted publicly and my brother had to pay repercussions for his deeds. My folks have been calling me non-stop since our chat, but I'm avoiding their calls. Even phoning them back that day makes me regretful. If I did nothing at all to assist my parents, would I really be in the wrong? Update 1. Since I last told my tale a week ago, things have been a whirl. And the help and encouragement I've been getting from everyone has been deluging. Knowing that I'm not alone at this period makes one hopeful. After all they have gone through, I am happy everyone feels I should not interact with my parents or even think about helping them out. I knew it was quite almost impossible for them to do, hence I even set them such a condition. Though they might have discovered by now that it was all his lies, I know they will never put my brother through what they put me through. They love him too much. After my parents once more tried to get in touch with me today, my brother sent me a nasty text message. I ignored their calls. He composed this. Hey sis, I can tell you every day without you in my life has been fantastic. It's been a long time since I seen you. Mom and dad contacted you, from what I heard, and you gave them an insane directive. You know, they never are going to follow through on it. They will never do anything to damage me, and they most obviously never loved you. Although I did lie about you 15 years ago, it has been a long time since then, hence cease being so self-serving and attempt to let go from the past. You are childless and single anyway, hence why would you not want to assist them with house repairs and renovations? Act moral and be a better daughter. Seeing the letter felt as though it were a stab to the chest. His lack of empathy was evident in the boldness to discount the hardships I had gone through and the conditions I had established. Emphasizing my single and childless status, the effort to guilt-trip me added still another degree of insensitivity. Not only was his implication that I should put their needs ahead of my own well-being objectionable, but it also underlined how little he considered me. Frustrated and driven by a deep need for justice, I determined it was time to intervene and expose the truth buried for too long. Sitting down to send an email to my parents and close relatives, I shared the terrible facts of my life and the unfair treatment I had suffered in my family house. In the email, I detailed how my parents treated me differently from my twin brother and the rigorous and repressive surroundings I had lived under. The email also explored the damaging and wholly false rumor my brother had disseminated about me in school, which had resulted in serious repercussions and damaged my name. I wrote on how my parents had kicked me out to the curb and how, had it not been for my grandma, by now I may have been dead in the streets. I encouraged everyone to read a note my brother had emailed toward the end. I included a screen grab showing him owning to lying about me. It was an unambiguous confession meant to reveal the lies that had lasted far too long. Just an hour ago, I wrote the email. Once my parents and brother see it, all hell will explode. I will let you know nextwise on how my family responds to my email. Update 2. My last update was 1 month ago, and as you might imagine, a lot of things have transpired this month. My family burst upon getting the email. Relatives who were earlier ignorant of the degree of the favoritism and emotional abuse have criticized my parents. Many of the family members contacted me apologizing for not being there for me and stating they had no idea about all this. I decided to contact a lawyer after my brother and dad sent me a torrent of text messages beginning to get increasingly violent and nasty. She sent a notice of cease and desist. It essentially advised them not to get in touch with me anymore and that, should they do, they would suffer severe legal repercussions. Given they ceased getting in touch, I suppose this must have terrified them straight. My grandmother supports me 100% since she believes I've done the right thing by informing everyone what occurred. She is the only person that counts to me, hence I'm happy she has my back. Update 3. 2 months apart have gone between my last update. For now, I am glad to say that all in my life is running smoothly. Professionally, my article writing company has been doing great. The offers to present at podcasts and seminars keep coming in, therefore confirming my reputation as a valued professional in my field of work. I am now as near to my grandmother as ever. Recently I took a 1-week vacation from work so I could spend some time with her. These days she enjoys gardening and taught me a lot about different herbs and flowers in her yard. My best and most treasured memories are the times I spend with her, meal sharing, deep talks, or just hanging around. I'm glad my family is keeping away from me since they haven't contacted me since the letter my attorney sent them. Since I personally started attending therapy, hopefully I can work on mending myself. Right now I believe this will be the last update. My stepbrother insisted that I leave the house during my stepfather's burial, believing it was his. Until the will revealed otherwise. 38-year-old Jake never imagined I would be getting ready for the burial of my stepfather. Memories sweep back like a tidal wave as I sit here organizing old pictures and planning. Death seems to cause one to consider a lifetime of events, both positive and negative. At 9 years old, my mother Sarah married Richard, my stepfather. The wedding day seems to me like yesterday. Mom looked lovely in her basic white outfit, hope beaming in her eyes for a fresh start. Richard, on the other hand, seemed to be stressing his austere attitude by wearing a black suit. Even on what ought to have been a happy occasion, he insisted on a solemn demeanor that I would come to know all too well over the years. Richard was a rigid man right from the beginning. Particularly when he turned to face me, he always seemed to be permanently frowning. Often I questioned whether he simply had the means to relate to a child who wasn't his own or if he harbored resentment at having to assume the position of stepfather. Growing up with Richard was not easy. From my grades to my wardrobe to even how I handled my fork at meals, he attacked everything I did. "You need to work harder, or this cruel world will chew you up and spit you out," he said almost daily. Looking back, I wonder if Dad was attempting to equip me for life in his own flawed manner. Even if at the time I believed he was just being nasty. His rigidity permeated every sphere of our life. I had to sit up straight, use the proper fork, and only spoke when spoken to during family get-togethers. Any departure from his expectations was greeted with a stinging stare or a harsh correction. Family vacations, which ought to have been lighthearted and leisureful, were more like military drills than pleasure excursions. Richard would schedule everything down to the last minute, heaven help us should we stray from the plan. One vacation I recall we missed a turn and arrived at a museum 15 minutes late. For the rest of the day Richard was in a terrible mood, grumbling about lost time and inadequate preparation. Everything changed 3 years following the wedding when my stepbrother Michael was born. Richard suddenly had his own son, and it was obviously clear whose favorite was. He poured love and compliments on Michael. Richard's smile was unlike anything I'd seen till he held his newborn kid. It revealed a part of Richard I never knew existed, like a switch had been turned on. I was envious and furious. When I was 12 years old, I couldn't comprehend why Michael received all the love and attention while I just got harsh looks and criticism. The difference was clear and agonizing. Michael's achievements, no matter little, were honored with great celebration. Even if they were notable, my own successes were greeted with a nod and a remark on how I can improve next time. Mom would try to reassure me when I protested to her about the unfair treatment. "Richard loves you too, Jake," she would say, her eyes begging me to understand. "That's just rough love. He wants you ready for the world." Still, it didn't feel like love to me. It seemed like continual disappointment as Richard saw me always failing. Our family dynamic changed in ways I never would have predicted throughout the years. Mom became ill at 25, and we all gathered around her. Richard stayed stoic even then, but I sensed compassion when he felt nobody else was looking. When Mom thought I wasn't in the room, I would observe him softly changing her pillows or crutching her hand. It was the first time I understood that Richard's lack of affection could have been more a result of his personal constraints than of his sentiments for us. 2 years later Mom passed away, and it felt as though the glue keeping our family intact had broken. Tears and quiet prayers defined the funeral. Richard stood like a monument all through the service, his face a blank mask. Though the wall between us seemed insurmountable, I wanted to get in touch with him to express our loss. Then 21 Michael left soon after Mom passed away. He launched his own family after tying the knot with Emma, his high school sweetheart. It was only me and Richard in that large mansion loaded with memories suddenly. I gave moving out some thought as well, but something held me back. Perhaps it was a feeling of obligation, or perhaps deep down I was still that small boy yearning some indication of approval from the guy who had been my father figure for most of my life. Looking after Richard in his latter years was difficult. Fighting the restrictions his aging body placed on him, he was as tenacious and critical as always. There were days when our conflict was so thick you could cut it with a knife. But occasionally too I felt short sparks of thanks in his eyes. Like the time I stayed up all night with him during a sick attack, or when I learned to make his preferred foods as he grew too frail to stand at the stove himself. Those were uncommon events though, and most of the time I felt as though I was looking after a stranger who happened to live in my house. We were living in a tense truce, neither of us entirely sure how to close the distance that had widened between us over years. Richard's character made me never even consider entering a relationship or getting married. I wanted none of the same issues I was experiencing from my wife or girlfriend to confront. Richard's gone at 65, taken unexpectedly in the evening from a heart attack. Everyone is showing their respect as I get ready for his burial. Michael arrived with Emma and their children, Lily 5 years old and Max 3 years old. I hadn't seen him in years until now. Though he seems older and more austere, I recall from our early years that he exudes entitlement about everything. The funeral was a depressing event. I stood there listening to people talk about Richard, a fantastic man who always placed family first, a pillar of the community, and I wanted to find fun in the irony of it all. Knowing the same man I did they? To me, the Richard they described seemed to be a stranger. Michael drew me aside as folks were departing once it was all over. I considered that perhaps he wished to assist each other in our sadness, to reconnect, or to share memories of our childhood. Rather, he delivered a startling blow that left me whirling. "So, about the house," he said. His voice laid back as though we were talking about the temperature. "I'll need you to leave by the end of the month." "Not sure," I glanced at him. "What are you talking about?" He groaned and cast an intentionally obtuse glance at me. "Clearly, the house." Dad turned it over to me. "Ultimately, I am his genuine son. You never imagined he would leave it to you?" I thought of myself as having been gutly pounded. This was how it turned out, all these years of trying to be the son Richard wanted and of looking after him. Part of me wanted to fight for what I felt I had earned over years of conscientious living. But another side of me, the one still feeling like that 9-year-old lad yearning for affirmation, wanted to withdraw. "Fine," I answered, my voice empty. "I'll be out by the end of the month." Not only for Richard, but for the family I never really had, for the bond I had always hoped would grow between Richard and me but never did, as I watched Michael walk away arm around Emma, kids running ahead. That evening I began packing among boxes of memories I wasn't sure I wanted to save. Sorting through years of accumulated belongings, I couldn't help but wonder whether Richard had been right all along. Sometimes you still ended up with nothing to show for it. The world was harsh. Update: I sold out of my childhood house a week ago. For now, Mom's sister Linda is here with me trying to decide what to do next. Thinking about Michael and how we got here, I lie awake at night staring at the foreign ceiling. Michael obviously was the preferred child growing up. Richard doted on him in a way he never did with me from the time he was born. Birthday celebrations with all his friends invited, new toys just because, please smiles when he brought home a good report card, all things I had longed for but never received. I recall one birthday Michael was around 8 years old. Richard hired a whole arcade for his buddies and himself. At the time, I was 17 and couldn't help but contrast it with my own birthdays, which often featured a quiet meal and perhaps a small gift. But Michael aged and something changed. The sweet little lad who used to follow me about wanting to play developed into a depressed adolescent who appeared to hate everything and everyone. He started to treat me like I was invisible and spoke angrily back to our parents. It was like seeing a stranger seize my little brother's body. One specific occasion comes to mind when he was around 16. Richard asked us about his marks when we were having dinner. Richard asked us both this kind of inquiry all the time. It was a regular one. Michael burst this time though. He began screaming about how he despised living under Richard's control and how sick he felt of the pressure. He bolted from the house, slamming the door so fiercely a picture fell from the wall. Richard seemed to be sitting there, looking older and sadder than I had ever seen him. Instead of the angry man I had anticipated to pursue Michael and drag back. Michael's behavior just became worse as he grew older. He began courting a series of girls, each relationship ending hazily. Late nights, missing curfews, and shouting battles with Richard that rocked the home abound. I tried to keep out of it, but the continual stress would inevitably affect me. Michael laughed it off when Richard tried to discuss respect and duty. "You can't control me anymore," he would say, and Richard would get this expression, a mix of wrath and despair, that I had never seen before. Then arrived the day he turned up with Emma as his bride. Not even among us knew he was seeing someone seriously, let alone getting ready for marriage. Walking in with Emma, little more than a teenage herself, he said they had eloped. I shall never forget Richard's expression. For once, he was silent. Mom tried to calm things down and welcome Emma into the family, but the air was clearly charged. Richard seemed to be straining to keep his cool and to find the proper words to speak to his kid. Emma claimed she wanted to live free from family meddling, apart. Michael thus packed his luggage and left, simply as that. He pledged to visit and keep in touch, but those pledges soon dropped off the list. Weeks became months devoid of his communication. His calls were always quick and often tinged with conflict. I assumed definitely he would come back when Mom fell ill, but he did not. He asked her periodically how she was doing, but always had a reason for why he couldn't visit. Work was hectic, the kids were sick, the car was in the shop. Something was always there. Hoping it would be Michael, I recall sitting next Mom's hospital bed and seeing her eyes flash every time the phone rang. More usually than not, it wasn't. It was me who had to phone Mom to let her know she died. He sounded very offended, full of regret for not visiting more frequently. He claimed he would try to make it to the funeral, but ultimately he did not show up, just a flower arrangement delivered to the funeral house accompanied by a card offering his sympathies. Feeling his absence like a physical hurt, I stood at the burial wondering how we had become so far apart. And right now here we are. Not motivated by love or obligation, the prodigal son returns for what he can gain. Thinking about how he swooped in and grabbed the house, acting as though he had some right to do so when he had left us years earlier, makes me enraged. I consider all the evenings I spent seeing to Richard, all the doctor's visits I accompanied, all the meals I made, and all the expenses I paid. And for what? To be thrown aside just like I never really mattered at all. But my phone calls as I'm staggered in these terrible ideas. It is Mr. Thompson, Richard's attorney. Telling me he has to talk about something vital, he sounds serious and asks me to come back to the house tomorrow. Uncertain on what to believe. Part of me hopes there's a mistake and maybe I won't have to abandon my house after all. Knowing how let down I have been in the past, another side of me is terrified to hope. I wonder what tomorrow will hold as I hang up the phone. Whatever it is, I am clear one thing. This is not going to be easy. I toss and turn the remainder of the night, my head ablaze with possibilities. Something so crucial that Mr. Thompson had to see me personally. Richard left something for me after all. Is it conceivable? Alternatively, is this only another letdown in a long run of disappointments? Feeling like a stranger, I stood before my childhood house the next day. To my astonishment, Michael's car was also in the driveway already. Breathing deeply, I entered. The familiar creak of the front door sent a pulse through me. Sitting at the dining room table, Mr. Thompson had a stack of documents before him. There were Michael and Emma as well, clearly agitated. With his demeanor unreadable, the attorney motioned for me to sit down. Seated, well aware of the tension in the room. "Thank you all for coming," he said with a firm business-like voice. "I know this is a tough period, but there are some crucial issues about Richard's will we should talk about." Michael slanted forward, a smug grin on his face. "Let's wrap this up. I would want to start right away as I have plans for this home." Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, seeming uncomfortable. "We should really talk about that. Richard's will states that Jake has been left the house and in fact all of his possessions." The room went still for a time. I felt as though I couldn't breathe. Had I heard him precisely? After all these years of believing I was never good enough, Richard had left everything to me. The first to react was Michael. "What?" he yelled, leaping to his feet so fast his chair dropped backwards. "That's not possible. Real son of his father is me. He wouldn't hand everything to Jake." Mr. Thompson stayed cool under Michael's rage. "I'm rather worried it's rather obvious. Richard's will specifically says that Jake is to inherit all of his possessions, including the house, his savings, and his personal items." What I was hearing defied belief. It seemed illogical. Those years of criticism, of feeling as though I could never measure up, and now this. Michael was pacing now, his face flushed with rage. "This is nuts. When he composed this, he must have been insane. I'll dispute it. I'll bring this before court." Mr. Thompson gave a head shake. "That is not what I would counsel. Richard prepared this will rather carefully. He included a letter outlining his choice and had it attested and notarized. Challenging effectively would be quite difficult." Michael turned to face me, his eyes flaming with resentment. "You did this, did not you? You somehow twisted him against me." Still in disbelief personally, I raised my hands. "About any of this I knew nothing. I assumed he was forwarding everything to you." Before things could get much more heated, Mr. Thompson stepped in. "If I may, I think Richard's letter might help to clarify his choice." Pulling out an envelope, he started to read. To his sons, "Should you be reading this, I am gone. Though I hope I can clarify, I know you two may find my choice shocking. I have made lots of mistakes over my life. Among my largest was not treating both of my sons equally in terms of love. I expected too much from Jake, was too demanding, never showed enough affection. And I treated Michael too kindly. I never set appropriate limits or imparted any lessons of value. As I considered my life in my last years, I came to see something crucial. A real son is defined by behavior rather than blood. And in that sense, Jake behaved as a real son ought to. He stayed with me through trying circumstances and looked after me even when I didn't deserve it. All the traits I attempted to teach but failed to show myself, patience, kindness and responsibility, he exhibited. I am so leaving everything to him, not as a punishment to Michael but rather as a tribute to the kid who really embodied the ideals I cherish. I hope you both have the compassion to see and pardon the errors of an elderly guy." The room went still once Mr. Thompson closed his book. Tears came to me, a lifetime of feelings rising inside me. All those years I felt Richard didn't care, that he considered me a disappointment. But he had been observing, noting, valuing in his own unique sense. Michael froze momentarily, his face a mask of shock and rage. Then he silently seized Emma's hand, rushed out, slammed the door behind him. His automobile started up and ran out of the driveway. The last act of disobedience was a tire screech. Turning to me, Mr. Thompson wore a gentle grin. "I know this is a lot to absorb, Jake," he continued. "Richard expressed his preferences quite precisely. He wished for you a safe future free from financial concerns." I nodded, still not sure I understood exactly what had transpired. "Thank you," I managed to say. "I need some time to consider all this." Mr. Thompson stopped as he neatly folded his documents. "There is still one more item. Your stepfather left you a personal note as well. You read it in private?" he questioned. He gave me an envelope with my name written in Richard's recognizable handwriting on it. I took it knowing that within our words I had waited a lifetime to hear with shaky hands. I sat by myself in the quiet house flipping the envelope in my hands after Mr. Thompson departed. At last I plucked the will to open it and read. "Jake dear, though I know I've never been excellent at communicating my emotions, hopefully this letter will help to offset some of my faults. I'm glad of the man you have evolved into. Though I failed as a parent, I had a challenging upbringing and never taught appropriate affectionate behavior. I reasoned that the best way to equip you for life was to be rigorous and challenge you. I regret the suffering I caused you. Now I understand I was mistaken. Particularly in these last several years, your compassion and commitment have shown me what actual strength and integrity look like. You now more than ever reflect the guy I always dreamed you would be. I apologize for not telling you these things when I was living. With my last wishes and this letter, maybe, you will have some peace and protection. Remember yourself, son. You are deserving of all the joy available. Love, Richard." Tears came down my face as I closed the book. All those years of feeling inadequate, of thinking Richard didn't care, and now this was overpowering. Over the next days I battled to make sense of everything. Once a cause of stress and bad memories, the house felt different now. It belonged to me, in a deeper sense as much as legally. It was evidence of Richard's affection, sincere if spoken too late. Michael hasn't gotten in touch since he departed that day. Not sure whether he will. Though I know it will take time, part of me hopes we can reconcile someday. The pain is still raw, and our distance seems more than it did years ago. I have given family, the complexity of love and the numerous ways people show it a lot of thought. Though often harsh, Richard's love was sincere. It was flawed. In his own sense, he was working to equip me for life and build my resilience. Though I wish he could have discovered a softer approach, I now better understand him. Regarding inheritance, it goes beyond just money and real estate. One has responsibility. Richard trusted me to continue on his legacy and to live the ideals he loved. Although it's a difficult work, I'm resolved to meet expectations. I have chosen to create a scholarship fund in Richard's name from a portion of the bequest. It's for children from difficult situations so they may have the education and chances they might otherwise miss. Taking the teachings he imparted on me and paying them forward seems like the proper approach to honor his memory. I'm still trying to make sense of everything as I sit here now in the house that turned unexpectedly into mine. Fathers and sons have a complex relationship marked by frequently unsaid feelings and misunderstandings. Richard and I never had the relationship I wanted when he was alive, but his last act has given me an opportunity to better know him, to see the love always there, buried under the surface. I wish Dad had told me these things during his lifetime. We could have had talks, cleared the air, perhaps even created the relationship I so yearned for. But life does not always provide us tidy ends or flawless closure. Right now, I'm concentrating on respecting Richard's memory by practicing the ideals he sought to inculcate in me. Work hard, be conscientious, and most importantly, love those who matter. I'm glad to be carrying on a legacy. Looking ahead, I experience a range of emotions: sadness for what was lost, thankfulness for what I have, and hope for what is to come. Richard's unexpected legacy has given me a fresh perspective of family, love and forgiveness in addition to financial stability. Though I never expected it, this is a new chapter in my life and I am ready to face it, bearing with me the lessons of the past and hope for a better future. That might ultimately be the best inheritance of all.